Chapter 2174. This nascent soul cultivator might be related to the great expert who sealed this young master's middle Dantian and Niwen palace. What about the other nascent soul cultivators? Xiao Hua speculated inwardly, but his figure was dissatisfied. He hastily turned around and flew towards Kueha Sea again. Xiao Hua's wild guess was naturally wrong, but Daoist Jing are you miss? When he estimated the difference, he suddenly released his divine sense and cast it like a net in the sea, wanting to lock onto Xiao Hua with his divine sense. Contrary to Daoist Jing Ru's expectations, he missed again. This Daoist Jing Ru was really ashamed and angry, so he had no choice but to use his secret technique again. When Daoist Jing Ru saw it clearly, he almost vomited blood. The cunning Xiao Hua actually flew towards the depths of Kueha Sea again. Based on Xiao Hua's previous speed, Daoist Jing Ru was actually quite far away from him. This old man is going to waste time with you. Daoist Jing Ru laughed from extreme anger. The spiritual energy in Kueha Sea is thinner the deeper you go. This old man has a nascent soul, but what do you have? I'm afraid that before you reach the depths of Kueha Sea, the medicinal pills in your storage bag will be used up. This old man doesn't believe that even if this old man chases you slowly from behind, I won't be able to catch up. I won't be able to capture you. This old man will definitely use a secret technique to torture you 1,000 times. This old man wants to see what the origin of your Imperial Thunder School's lightning evasion technique is. Kueha Sea was vast and boundless, so it naturally stretched as far as the eye could see. However, Xiao Hua was, after all, over 100 li away from Daoist Jing Ru. Moreover, Xiao Hua deliberately lowered his altitude and flew close to the sea surface. Daoist Jing Ru really couldn't see Xiao Hua with his naked eyes or other magical abilities. Of course, Daoist Jing Ru was a nascent soul cultivator, so he naturally had magical abilities and magic techniques that Xiao Hua didn't know about. Unfortunately, Daoist Jing Ru couldn't even see Xiao Hua's face and couldn't catch up. All his magic techniques were also empty talk. This was also one of the reasons for Daoist Jing Ru's shame and anger, because Daoist Jing Ru had to rely on a secret technique to determine Xiao Hua's position. He couldn't use all his magic power on a flying technique. Moreover, Daoist Jing Ru wasn't good at flying techniques, and this rainbow flying technique consumed a lot of magic power. So much so that he didn't bring his flying magic tool with him. All of these coincidences created an awkward situation for Daoist Jing Sai when she was chasing after Xiao Hua. Right now, Daoist Calm Consideration's only hope is that Xiao Hua's magic power is exhausted. Without spirit pills to replenish his true essence, his speed will drop. Or perhaps Daoist Jing Ru's divine sense could lock onto Xiao Hua. Daoist Jing Ru wouldn't need to use a secret technique and could pursue Xiao Hua with all his might. However, dozens of days quickly passed, and the distance between the two of them didn't change at all. Xiao Hua was still recklessly rushing around like a headless fly. Daoist Jing Sai also frequently used secret techniques to intercept Xiao Hua from behind. Although there were mountain-like tsunamis, although there were lightning flashes and thunder rolls in the dark night, although sea beasts occasionally emerged from time to time, and even experienced cultivators encountered them, Xiao Hua's magic power wasn't as exhausted as Daoist Master Jing Sai thought. Moreover, Xiao Hua's cultivation had actually increased extremely quickly due to Daoist Jing Ru's constant pressure. It was much faster than his usual cultivation speed. Motherfucker, this is my fate. Xiao Hua used the lightning evasion, and his flowing cloud movement technique also steadily improved. His flying speed was clearly faster than before. He couldn't help but secretly grumble. That year, under the pursuit of 4 Foundation Establishment cultivators, I suddenly rushed to the 10th level of Qi refining. Today, I'm being chased by a nascent soul cultivator. This guy is even more powerful than those 4. Since his following orders, even if he doesn't kill me as soon as he sees me, he'll completely imprison me. If I see the almighty person who sealed me, do you think I'll still be alive? I reckon that under this guy's pursuit, I'll rush to the gold core stage. Daoist Jing Ru was even more astonished than Xiao Hua. This wasn't a few days, nor was it a dozen days. It had already been more than a month, but Xiao Hua's speed didn't show any signs of slowing down. This guy, where did he get so many spirit pills? HMPH, spirit pills. Although your Imperial Thunder sect has a lot of spirit pills, I want to see how a Foundation establishment cultivator can completely refine the medicinal power after taking so many spirit pills all at once. Even if they're all used for flight, won't the medicinal power accumulated in the meridians leave behind future troubles? Even if I can't catch up to you, do you think you can still continue to advance? Won't your cultivation be damaged? Another dozen days passed, and Daoist Jing-Yu was still the same as before. He withdrew his secret technique and chased after Xiao Hua in the direction he estimated. At this time, Xiao Hua had just turned around and wanted to fly in the direction of the Dawn Rain continent. Because there were no warning signs in advance, Xiao Hua didn't pay too much attention to it. He had just retracted his Buddhist sense and thought that Daoist Jing-Yu was still chasing after him. However, after the time it took to eat a meal, the familiar divine sense that his Buddhist sense had already come into contact with swept over like a waterfall and locked onto Xiao Hua all of a sudden. Ah! Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He released his Buddhist sense and suddenly discovered that Daoist Jing-Yu was only a dozen li away from him and was at the edge of his Buddhist sense. Looking at this young nascent soul cultivator and the sinister smile on his face, Xiao Hua's soul flew out of his body and his heart jumped for no reason. He clapped his hands and sent a handful of bright flower pills into the air. Then, he immediately urged the Dragon Transformation secret art, the Celestial Body Filling Technique, and the Heart Sutra to refine the Earth Essence Yarrow Milk. Under these several methods, Xiao Hua's flying speed suddenly increased greatly. Aya! What kind of flying technique is this? Daoist Jing-Yu's divine sense finally saw Xiao Hua. He saw that Xiao Hua's body was wrapped in a layer of earthy yellow spiritual energy. Moreover, there were many faint whirlpools appearing on the surface of his body, stirring up the surrounding spiritual energy and pouring it into his body. Daoist Jing-Yu was quite astonished, especially when he saw that Xiao Hua's flying technique was actually comparable to that of a nascent soul cultivator. After all, he had previously used a secret technique and couldn't urge the flying technique to its limit. But now, he had almost pushed the flying technique to its limit. Of course, if he had used the secret technique before, Daoist Jing-Yu would still be somewhat worried. After all, the distance between the two was more than 100 li and his divine sense hadn't locked onto Xiao Hua. But now, it was different. Daoist Jing-Yu didn't need to consume magic power to support the secret technique and his divine sense had locked onto Xiao Hua. Daoist Jing-Yu's heart had long since returned to his stomach. If he could still let Xiao Hua escape under these circumstances, then he, Daoist Jing-Yu, would truly have no face to hang around in the cultivation world of the Dawn Rain continent. After another half a day, Daoist Jing-Yu felt that he seemed to be a bit too optimistic. The distance between him and Xiao Hua was now about 70 li, which was within the range of his divine sense. However, in this half a day, although this distance had somewhat decreased, the decrease was really limited. Moreover, Xiao Hua's current direction was already rushing towards the Dawn Rain continent because of the turn just now. Daoist Jing-Yu's flying speed slowed down slightly and his hands formed a seal. A trace of redness appeared on Daoist Jing-Yu's face, and a dark green sword-shaped magic weapon emerged from the top of his head. It slightly flashed in the air and unexpectedly disappeared into the void. Since you've been locked onto by this old man's divine sense, doesn't this old man have countless methods to deal with you? Daoist Jing-Yu's face revealed a sinister smile. Xiao Hua naturally didn't dare to withdraw his Buddhist sense. Although it wasn't completely unfolded, it still extended to the left. Suddenly, a wave of ripples abruptly flashed in the space around 3m behind Xiao Hua, and then the jade-green magic treasure actually appeared out of thin air and pierced directly towards Xiao Hua's back. Ah! What kind of method is this? Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He already had nowhere to hide, but at this dangerous moment, Xiao Hua relied on the ethereal steps to dodge the attack. That flying sword precisely hit Xiao Hua's shoulder blade. Peng, like the sound of metal striking stone, Xiao Hua's figure admittedly staggered a little, but his flying speed unexpectedly didn't slow down at all. In fact, he even flew a bit more because of this. What made Xiao Hua feel most at ease and what made Daoist Jing Ayu's eyes pop out the most was that Xiao Hua actually didn't suffer the slightest injury. Ha ha ha, celestial infusion technique. It's really a divine technique, an ancient technique. Xiao Hua almost wanted to laugh out loud. During this month, he didn't stop cultivating the celestial infusion technique at all. This technique not only transformed the world's spiritual energy into true qi, but also gradually strengthened Xiao Hua's physical body. Daoist Jing Ayu's hasty attack actually didn't injure Xiao Hua in the slightest. With this delay, Daoist Jing Ayu once again pulled away from Xiao Hua. Looking at Xiao Hua's lively appearance, Daoist Jing Ayu didn't know what to say. His flying technique was so outstanding, and his physical body was also so valiant. This kind of cultivator, if his magic power was similar to those of the same stage, then he would be a near-invincible existence. If he was allowed to cultivate to nascent soul, then perhaps the order of catching up to him would completely change. So much so that he simply wouldn't have the opportunity to escape. Thinking of this, Daoist Jing Ayu's eyes slightly narrowed, and his desire to kill Xiao Hua became even more resolute. Quick! Daoist Jing Ayu threw a scarlet medicinal pill into his mouth. His entire physical body suddenly swelled up, and his flying figure naturally slowed down a little. Soon after, Daoist Jing Ayu made a hand seal, and his index and middle fingers condensed together, just like a sword technique. The sword-type magic weapon that had just struck Xiao Hua, under the control of Daoist Jing Ayu, suddenly flew up, quickly raised its head, and suddenly overtook Xiao Hua's figure, directly stabbing towards Xiao Hua's throat. Seeing the sword-type magic weapon stabbing towards him, Xiao Hua knew that Daoist Jing Ayu wanted to use it to slow down his flight. He only needed to close the distance between them, and he would have no means to fight back. Open! Xiao Hua shouted, clenching his hand into a fist. Without the slightest hesitation, he used the Big Dipper Divine Fist on the back of the sword-type magic weapon. The Big Dipper Divine Fist was so wondrous that Xiao Hua's figure flew like moving clouds and flowing water, and his fist hit the back of the sword. The condensed earth-type spiritual energy shell on his fist blocked Xiao Hua's skin, but Daoist Jing Ayu's heart shook, and his figure also slightly swayed. Obviously, his magic weapon had received the attack, and he also suffered some damage. Looking at Xiao Hua again, he unexpectedly borrowed the force of the attack to once again increase the distance between them. -8. Chapter 2175. Xiao Hua was determined. No matter how Daoist Jing Ayu attacked, he only dodged and didn't fight back. He only increased the distance between them. Daoist Jing Ayu was somewhat at a loss for words. He didn't dare to use spells or activate magic treasures again. If he slowed down his flying speed again, maybe Xiao Hua would really escape from the range of his divine sense. Therefore, Daoist Jing Ayu spared no effort to fly again. It took him nearly half a day to close the distance again. Obviously, Daoist Jing Ayu consumed more magic power to close the distance this time. It was just that this magic power was really too small. It was difficult for Daoist Jing Ayu to detect it in his pursuit. Seeing Xiao Hua enter his attack range again, Daoist Jing Ayu slightly hesitated. Then, he clenched his teeth and raised his hand to slap his forehead. A multicolored light blossomed from the top of his head, and a foot-long infant flew out from the top of Daoist Jing Ayu's head. This infant had white teeth and red lips. Its facial features were exactly the same as Daoist Jing Ayu's. Its body was covered in a small spiritual armor. The spiritual armor was faintly overflowing with brilliance, and the infant was holding a cauldron-like magic treasure in its hand. At the bottom of the magic treasure, purple true samadhi fire licked the cauldron like tongues of fire. This was the nascent soul that Daoist Jing Ayu gave birth to. As soon as the nascent soul came out, it immediately stretched and opened its small mouth. The surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth rumbled and was sucked into the nascent soul's body like a hurricane. Immediately, the nascent soul's eyes flashed with malevolence. It had the same expression as Daoist Jing Ayu. Hearing Daoist Jing Ayu spirate, his body slowed down. The nascent soul jumped with joy and waved the cauldron in its hand. Its figure turned into a stream of light and chased after Xiao Hua's back. Although the nascent soul flew very fast, it would take half a meal for it to catch up with Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense had already sensed the abnormality of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. His complexion was deathly pale, but he had already prepared the tip of the demonic spear. The nascent soul flew to about 10 zhong behind Xiao Hua and waved its small hand. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth around Xiao Hua was sucked dry by the nascent soul. Moreover, a suffocating imprisoning force was born in this space. It wanted to choke Xiao Hua's entire body. Rise. Magic power surged on Xiao Hua's body, and an earth-yellow brilliance surged forth. The Phoenix Dharma body flew out of his body. With a gar sound, a bright light flashed through his phoenix eyes. The Phoenix Dharma body actually struggled to break free from the confinement force. A cold light flashed, and its phoenix claws grabbed at Daoist Jing Sai's nascent soul. Hey! True bloodline? The nascent soul's small mouth was also shocked, but he was not nervous. He pointed his finger, and a force was directed at the Phoenix celestial body. It was like a rope, trying to bind the Phoenix celestial body. Core. The Phoenix Dharma body flapped its wings with all its might and struggled to break free from the shackles. On the other hand, the nascent soul's body was also flashing with light. It was obvious that it was also consuming its magic power to cast the confinement spell. Xiao Hua, on the other hand, was fiercely struggling with his arms. While he was using his physical body to break free from the shackles, he was also repeatedly using the heaven and earth within sleeves technique. Unexpectedly, he was evenly matched with the shackles of a nascent soul cultivator. Since he saw that the shackles were ineffective, Xiao Hua immediately rushed forward and flew towards the nascent soul. The nascent soul was not afraid of Xiao Hua's counterattack at all. Seeing Xiao Hua stop, the corners of his mouth curled into a slight smile. He threw his hand, and the pill furnace immediately flew out. Samadhi true fire, more than 100 feet long, shot out from within and pounced towards Xiao Hua. Ha ha ha. Xiao Hua laughed loudly. Under the cover of his Daoist robe, the heaven and earth within sleeves technique mixed with the Samadhi true fire also pounced towards the pill furnace. Ah! You also know Samadhi true fire? The nascent soul's small voice was filled with astonishment. Go to hell. It was just a simple astonishment. The nascent soul's small hand clenched, and Xiao Hua immediately felt the true essence in his body congeal. It seemed that he could not use his magic power. Good, good. A nascent soul cultivator's methods are indeed not simple. While Xiao Hua was praising, he raised his left hand and took out the devil hammer. Peng, peng, peng. He struck at the space. The shackles of the nascent soul were once again shaken by the devil hammer. Xiao Hua's strength had once again increased a bit under the cultivation of the celestial body bestowment technique. Devil weapon. In the distance, Daoist Jing Ru's speed had also slowed down a lot. He looked at the huge devil hammer in Xiao Hua's hand with some disbelief. He was very clear that devil weapons were the nemesis of Daoist cultivators. His nascent soul was also afraid of devil weapons. If this devil hammer struck the nascent soul, there would definitely be irreparable damage. Fortunately, although this guy's magic power is not bad, it still can't compare to this old man's. Admittedly, the strength of his fleshly body is valiant, but he can only barely resist this old man's magic power. Daoist Jing Ru was actually somewhat glad. It was far from the previous aloof attitude of a nascent soul cultivator. Instead, Daoist Jing Ru only rejoiced for a moment when he saw a black light unexpectedly flash in Xiao Hua's hand. A black iron needle flew out and pierced between the nascent soul's eyebrows. This black light was extremely fast, scaring the nascent soul into a slight daze. He hastily waved his hand and used a spell to block the black iron needle. However, this black iron needle was covered by Xiao Hua's concealment. Taking advantage of the nascent soul's distraction, Xiao Hua's figure suddenly sped up. His originally empty left hand suddenly flashed with the tip of a devil's spear. It swiftly pierced towards the nascent soul's body. This devil's spear tip had yet to reach the body when Daoist Jing Ru's nascent soul immediately gave birth to a chill. Almost without thinking, the nascent soul's figure suddenly swayed and unexpectedly disappeared into thin air. When it reappeared, it was already several zhong away, leaping high out of the range of Xiao Hua's devil spear tip. This was precisely the nascent soul's special teleportation technique. What kind of strange devil tool is this? Daoist Jing Yu was greatly shocked. His previous rejoicing had long since disappeared. It seems, this old man has a feeling that if this devil spear tip brushes against my nascent soul will be absorbed by this devil spear tip. Damn it, what kind of strange cultivator is this Xiao Hua? You're not cultivating your heaven-reaching Dao sect cultivation. What kind of strange thing are you doing? At this moment, Daoist Jing Yu almost wanted to teach Xiao Hua a lesson. Xiao Hua, this kind of cultivator who refined his body to a certain degree, was precisely the nemesis of nascent souls. Daoist Jing Yu was only at the early nascent soul stage and had yet to condense his nascent soul. If his nascent soul was slightly touched, it was possible that he would lose several decades or even several hundred years of cultivation before he could recover. If he wasn't careful, there would really be the danger of being destroyed. Daoist Jing Yu saw that Xiao Hua was a foundation establishment cultivator, so he released his nascent soul. He wanted to use his nascent soul to catch up to Xiao Hua, but when he released his nascent soul, he was also hesitant because he was afraid of the current situation. However, Daoist Jing Yu wasn't too afraid. After all, Xiao Hua's cultivation was too far apart, and his nascent soul still had too many divine abilities that it hadn't used. Therefore, Daoist Jing Yu's nascent soul leaped high into the sky and immediately pointed its hand. The pill furnace surrounded by Xiao Hua's true samadhi fire suddenly expanded, and an enormous suction force was born from that pill furnace. Not only did it cover Xiao Hua's phoenix dharma body, it even sucked Xiao Hua inside. -8. Chapter 2176. Xiao Hua's figure had already reached the mouth of the cauldron and was about to fall into it. The nascent soul let out a small wild laugh. Ha ha ha. This old man wants to see what ability you have to escape from this old man's one chi divine cauldron. However, he was only able to finish his words when he saw Xiao Hua's somewhat despairing eyes slightly brighten. A yellow figure flashed out from Xiao Hua's chest and pounced on the nascent soul like a yellow wind. Ah! In an instant, the nascent soul's eyes contracted. A feeling of being stared at by his natural nemesis involuntarily flashed from the bottom of his heart. The nascent soul made a prompt decision and immediately teleported, disappearing from its original place. It rushed towards Daoist Jing Rong in a panic, as if only Daoist Jing Rong's body was the safest place. Spirit beast. Daoist Jing Rong, who was watching from a distance, almost wanted to cry. He clearly knew in his heart that Xiao Hua's spirit beast was the kind that could devour nascent souls. Otherwise, his nascent soul wouldn't have disregarded everything and run back with all its might. Daoist Jing Rong didn't dare to be careless. This nascent soul was his foundation. He hastily swallowed another spirit pill and once again urged his magic power to welcome the nascent soul. The one chi divine cauldron's suction force suddenly stopped. Xiao Hua's dharma body and physical body both stopped under the cauldron. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment. When he saw Goldie, he was somewhat confused. Goldie was afraid that it wouldn't be able to catch up with the nascent soul before Daoist Jing Rong could welcome it. He didn't dare to stay for a moment, so while calling Goldie back, he flicked his big sleeve and used the heaven and earth sleeve technique to cover the one chi divine cauldron. Seeing Xiao Hua easily receive the cauldron, Daoist Jing Rong was stunned, truly stunned. Silly, how could a first-level chi refining idiot? He didn't even pay attention to the nascent soul that was rapidly flying over like a bird startled by the twang of a bow. Daoist Jing Rong really couldn't understand. This was because this one chi divine cauldron was used to refine tools, and it was a life-bound magic treasure refined with his true life essence. It was connected to his primordial spirit. Not to mention that Xiao Hua was a foundation establishment cultivator. Even a nascent soul cultivator wouldn't be able to receive it so easily. Even if a spirit-severing stage cultivator came to collect it, they would have to use a great deal of magic power. Without a rumbling sound like a mountain shaking sound, it was absolutely impossible to collect it. The most important thing was that Daoist Jing Sai only needed to think about it and the divine furnace would immediately fly back to Daoist Jing Sai's side. It was absolutely impossible for it to be taken away by others. Even if it was taken away by someone else, Daoist Jing Sai still had a way to take it away from someone else's storage pouch. Just like how Her Highness's token was in Xiao Hua's storage pouch that day, it could fly away at any time. But now, Daoist Jing Sai's lifebound magic treasure was unexpectedly taken away by a puny Foundation establishment cultivator. Moreover, it was so easy to take it away without the slightest trace, just like a spring dream. Daoist Jing Sai couldn't sense the slightest trace of the one-chi divine furnace inside Xiao Hua's storage pouch. "You brat, if I don't capture you, pull out your tendons and skin you alive, grind your bones and scatter your ashes, and let you taste the pain of having your soul searched, my name is not Jing Liang." Daoist Jing Sai stomped his feet in midair, stirring up all the magic power in his body to welcome his nascent soul and chase after Xiao Hua. Unfortunately, although the magic power of a nascent soul cultivator was formidable, Xiao Hua was currently several tens of li away. How could he hear his thunderous roar? Xiao Hua, who had always been a thief, didn't leave empty-handed. At this time, withdrew his Phoenix Dharma body. Like Daoist Jing Sai, he once again stirred up his magic power and rushed forward. It had to be said that Xiao Hua's method of stealing things in passing was wonderful. Daoist Jing Sai's nascent soul fled in panic, simply not caring about the one-chi divine furnace. Xiao Hua's heaven and earth sleeve technique was an ancient magic technique. Although Xiao Hua's cultivation was still shallow, it could still temporarily cut off the connection between the magic treasure and Daoist Jing Sai's primordial spirit. Of course, if Xiao Hua was an ordinary cultivator, he would use magic power to put the magic treasure into his storage pouch. It would be tantamount to a baby moving a huge mountain. It would be almost impossible. But Xiao Hua's method of putting the magic treasure into his space was his primordial spirit. The one-chi divine furnace only had a connection with the primordial spirit. There was no primordial spirit attached. Even if there was a primordial spirit attached, in front of Xiao Hua's powerful primordial spirit, it was no more than an ant. Therefore, Xiao Hua very simply put the one-chi divine furnace into his space. The things inside the space were Xiao Hua's personal belongings. Even a Mahayana cultivator wouldn't be able to take anything out of it. However, Xiao Hua still lost the best opportunity to escape from Daoist Jing Sai's pursuit. This was because Daoist Jing Sai underestimated Xiao Hua and rashly released his nascent soul. One must know that he was merely an early-stage nascent soul cultivator. His nascent soul hadn't completely solidified, and his magical power was limited. Moreover, he flew several tens of li away to kill Xiao Hua. For an early-stage nascent soul cultivator, this was very dangerous. Otherwise, Daoist Jing Sai would have been frightened when Xiao Hua took out the demonic tool just now. If Xiao Hua had risked sacrificing half of his magic power and used the spiritual fire, with the might of the spiritual fire and Xiao Hua's fire control technique, he would definitely be able to kill the nascent soul cultivator in one blow. How could Daoist Jing Sai, who had lost his nascent soul, still dare to chase after Xiao Hua? Unfortunately, the opportunity was lost, and it couldn't come back. Xiao Hua being able to escape from a nascent soul cultivator so calmly was already a legend. How could he possibly think of killing a nascent soul cultivator? Not only did Daoist Jing Sai's assassination attempt fail, but he also lost the one-chi divine furnace. What made Daoist Jing Sai angry the most was that he still hadn't shrunk the distance between him and Xiao Hua. In fact, he had pulled the distance even further and was about to approach the limit of 100 li of spiritual sense. In the following 2 days, Daoist Jing Sai no longer had any distractions. He only urged his magic power and took medicinal pills, wholeheartedly chasing after Xiao Hua. He wanted to get close and then use his methods to kill him. Soon, Daoist Jing Sai was only about 20 li away from Xiao Hua. Daoist Jing Sai's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. He had been holding back for a long time. He slightly slowed down his flying speed and secretly formed hand seals, brewing a great spell. When he flew a little closer, he would use his thunderous method. But right at this moment, the figure of Xiao Hua, who was flying within a stretch of dark green pine trees, suddenly vanished. Ah! Daoist Jing Sai was stunned. His spiritual sense swept, but there was no trace of him. Moreover, because Xiao Hua's whole body was surrounded by a layer of earth attribute spiritual energy, Daoist Jing Sai's spiritual sense didn't mark him. He couldn't rely on his spiritual sense mark to find Xiao Hua. Why does this guy have so many strange spells? Daoist Jing Sai was helpless. He had no choice but to disperse the spell in his hand and use the secret technique. Fortunately, the secret technique was still effective. The cunning Xiao Hua was actually within the range of Daoist Jing Sai's spiritual sense, but he had already changed direction and fled towards the north. Damn it! Daoist Jing Sai roared and chased in that direction. Because Daoist Jing Sai still had to rely on the secret technique to find Xiao Hua's position, his flying speed inevitably slowed down, and Xiao Hua, who was using the wood escape, was also pleasantly surprised. He also saw that the distance between the two people was getting closer and closer. He knew from his Buddhist sense that Daoist Jing Sai was brewing magic power, so he took the risk and gave it a try. He also didn't know whether or not he had a nascent soul cultivator's spiritual sense mark on his body, but since Daoist Jing Sai's speed had slowed down, that meant he had no choice but to find his trace. This wood escape was effective. Of course, Xiao Hua's wood escape was still a bit slower than the thunder escape. However, it had the advantage of not leaving any trace. Daoist Jing Sai's spiritual sense couldn't see him, so he could calmly escape, especially when he was running all over the place. As a result, the distance between Xiao Hua and Daoist Jing Sai increased again. A few days later, Xiao Hua flew out from the other end of the forest. He swept with his Buddhist sense and was very satisfied. At this time, the distance between him and Daoist Jing Sai was just right for him to escape into the mountains. But at this time, Xiao Hua's brows slightly wrinkled. His Buddhist sense saw that there was a lot of barren land at the edge of the nearby mountain forest, and there was some sparse rice planted on it. Xiao Hua's eyes turned, and his figure flew up again. With a wave of his hand, fine rice seeds continuously flew out from the space and landed on the ground below him. These seeds couldn't all land in suitable rice fields. Some fell on rocks, some fell on trees, some fell in the water, and even more fell in the moist soil. This guy actually appeared. Sensing Xiao Hua's appearance through his spiritual sense, Daoist Jing Sai was happy at first, but then he was astonished. He didn't understand what Xiao Hua was doing. He thought he was laying down some magic array. However, those tiny things Xiao Hua scattered didn't have a trace of magic power. Moreover, they were all over the ground. Even if he was laying down a magic array, he couldn't be so wasteful, right? When those farmers on the barren land discovered these fine seeds, they thought they were bestowed by the heavens and fell to the ground to kowtow. Only then did Daoist Jing Sai suddenly realize, damn it, isn't this the immortal rice seeds I obtained when I searched that farmer's soul? What is this Xiao Hua doing? At this time, he's still doing these meaningless things. This is humiliating me. Daoist Jing Sai suddenly came to a realization, and his anger unconsciously soared to the sky. But Daoist Jing Sai was really at his wit's end at this time. He chased for nearly 2 months, not daring to be distracted. He just wanted to catch up and then attack, but this Xiao Hua's strange methods always pulled the distance apart at the most dangerous time. Although Daoist Jing Sai flew a bit faster than Xiao Hua, he couldn't stop himself from using Xiao Hua's magic power. This won't do, I have to find a helper. Daoist Jing Sai suddenly had this thought, but it was immediately stifled. Yes, a nascent soul cultivator couldn't kill a foundation establishment cultivator, but he still needed to find a helper. If this helper was a core formation cultivator, he feared it wouldn't work. He had to be a nascent soul cultivator, but the favor of another nascent soul cultivator wasn't easy to accept. 2 nascent soul cultivators intercepting a foundation establishment cultivator, if this spread out, it would make others laugh their heads off. I must take back the flying magic tool. Daoist Jing Sai clapped his hands, and 1,000 miles sound transmitting talisman was sent out. He needed to take advantage of the fact that Xiao Hua was still in Meng country to get the flying magic tool. If he left Meng country, even if someone delivered the magic tool, he feared he wouldn't be able to receive it. -8. Chapter 2177. This old ghost is looking for a helper. Xiao Hua was shocked. He instantly thought of the cultivator who sealed his Niwen palace. Damn it, I'll risk it all. Before that person comes, I'll run as far as I can. The pitiful Xiao Hua still didn't know the origin of Daoist Jing Ru. His figure was still flying within Meng country. While planting rice seeds, he also urged his flying technique. Soon, more than half a year had passed and Xiao Hua was running around in Meng country. The earth crystal yarrow milk in his body was gradually refined and the yellow color on his body gradually faded away. Xiao Hua knew that this nascent soul cultivator's social network was definitely wider than his. He must know a lot of cultivators. Moreover, the other party had already sent out a sound transmitting talisman and was looking for people to find him. Therefore, Xiao Hua didn't dare to go to places with many cultivators and only looked for remote and dangerous places to escape. Even when Xiao Hua passed by Mojiao Black Forest, he thought of the secret area inside. However, the secret area was a natural restriction and he couldn't control the time when it was opened. If he rashly went in, he might be caught like a turtle in a jar and end up like the corpse he encountered at that time. Moreover, Mojiao was everywhere in Mojiao Black Forest and there were many dangers. Xiao Hua didn't have absolute confidence that he could escape from the joint attack of Mojiao and the nascent soul cultivator. Today was a day of continuous rain. Xiao Hua's body was surrounded by a faint brilliance, blocking all the rain outside of the brilliance. In the distance, Daoist Jing Ru had just used a secret technique to find the direction of Xiao Hua. He was within 100 miles. After sweeping with his divine sense, he was suddenly shocked and secretly said, "Isn't this Xiao Hua a foundation establishment cultivator?" The yellow heaven and earth spiritual qi outside his body has gradually faded away, but now he still has a protective brilliance. Isn't this a magical ability that only gold core cultivators have? Could it be that this guy is hiding his cultivation? Just as he was thinking, Daoist Jing Ru raised his eyebrows and became happy. His figure flew towards Xiao Hua's right without hesitation. At this time, Xiao Hua released his Buddhist sense to find traces of Daoist Jing Ru. Suddenly, almost parallel to Xiao Hua's right hand, there was a flying magic tool flickering with brilliance approaching at an extremely fast speed. I understand. Xiao Hua immediately understood. This nascent soul cultivator wasn't looking for any helpers. Instead, he asked someone to bring his own flying magic tool. Damn it, if I had known earlier. I wouldn't have strolled around Meng country. Why not just charge straight into the Mojiao Dark Forest? It's also better than being attacked from both sides. While thinking, Xiao Hua clapped his hand and took out another drop of earth crystal yarrow milk. Without hesitation, he slapped it on his own arm. Instantly, a thick layer of earthen yellow spirit energy of the heavens and the earth surged out from the surface of Xiao Hua's body. At the same time, Xiao Hua's meridians, body, and Phoenix Dharma body madly absorbed the earth element spirit energy once more. Xiao Hua's comprehension of the celestial body bestowment technique was also very good now, and he was operating it to the limit. As Daoist Jing Yu approached the flying magic tool, he sent out a sound-transmitting talisman. Once the flying magic tool received the sound-transmitting talisman, it immediately changed direction. Together with Daoist Jing Yu, it flew towards Xiao Hua in a pincer attack. How could Xiao Hua let them succeed? He immediately changed his direction and flew towards the direction of the country of Shi. After flying for another half a day, the flying magic tool's speed was actually only similar to Daoist Jing Yu's. It was not much faster, so how could it catch up with Xiao Hua? Therefore, Daoist Jing Yu had no choice but to get on the flying magic tool. On the flying magic tool was his disciple, Hu Guanju. Reporting to Master, disciple has brought the flying swallow. Hu Guanju had an indescribable expression on his face. He took out a storage pouch and said respectfully, "This is the medicinal pill that Master wants." In addition, disciple followed Master's sound transmission and came here by myself. I didn't tell anyone. Good. Daoist Jing Yu didn't say much to him. He sat cross-legged on the flying swallow, stretched out his hand, and placed it on a bulge. Immediately, Daoist Jing Yu's divine sense increased by 20%, and the flying speed also increased by 20%. You can go now. Daoist Jingyu saw Xiao Hua with his divine sense. His heart relaxed, and he indifferently ordered Hu Guanju. Yes, disciple understands. Hu Guanju unexpectedly acted as if he didn't see anything. Without saying anything, he turned around and jumped off the flying swallow, heading in the direction of the Changbai Sek. H. This old man wants to see. Daoist Jingyu coldly snorted. You've been flying for nearly a year, and you still haven't used up all your medicinal pills? Besides, this old man has a flying magic tool, and my speed is already much faster than yours. Moreover, my divine sense has also expanded. How can I not catch up with you? Oh! Xiao Hua's body surface, how can there be so much spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Daoist Jingyu calmed his heart and looked. He was immediately surprised. What is this? It seems to be earth crystal yarrow milk. How can Xiao Hua have such a strange thing? Previously, Xiao Hua was urging the earth crystal yarrow milk in his body to turn black, so Daoist Jingyu didn't notice it. Now that Xiao Hua was using the earth crystal yarrow milk, Daoist Jingyu was belatedly aware of the abnormality, but at this moment, a strange thing happened again. Xiao Hua, who was in front of him, saw Daoist Jingyu's speed increase. He stretched out his hand, and a little ink-like thing was in his hand. He opened his mouth and swallowed it. What strange thing is this? At this time, Daoist Jingyu was already somewhat used to it. He only wanted to know what kind of effect this thing could bring to Xiao Hua. Whoosh tilde with a sound, the earth-type spiritual energy of heaven and earth around Xiao Hua's body seemed to have been ignited, and all of it began to roll. Xiao Hua's body seemed to have been pierced by needles into millions of small dots, and a tiny vortex was set off. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth spiraled in. Does this guy want to fight to the death? Daoist Jingyu narrowed his eyes. He clearly understood in his heart that forcibly pouring in spiritual energy of heaven and earth was a great taboo for cultivators. Although it could increase one's magic power for a short period of time, the damage to one's physical body, meridians, and even one's Dao heart was too great. Unless it was absolutely necessary, no one would drink poison to quench their thirst. However, Xiao Hua once again made Daoist Jingyu's eyeballs fall out. The thing that Daoist Jingyu was most worried about happened again. Xiao Hua's flying speed unexpectedly increased again. There's no mistake, right? Daoist Jingyu almost jumped up on the flying swallow. He's as fast as an early nascent soul cultivator. This guy actually wants to surpass a nascent soul cultivator. Immediately, Daoist Jingyu clenched his teeth and took out a medicinal pill from a new storage pouch. He threw it into his mouth and said fiercely, "Good, since you want to play with this old man will play with you. Even if this old man can't catch up to you, I'll still force you to a dead end and make your cultivation unable to increase in this lifetime. I'll make you unable to fly, and when you stop, your meridians will burst, and your physical body will collapse and die." Alas, Daoist Jingyu himself probably hadn't thought of this at this time. What he was thinking now was not to personally kill Xiao Hua, but to take a step back and force Xiao Hua to take a medicinal pill and die. -8. Chapter 2178. Unfortunately, Daoist Jingyu, a nascent soul cultivator, had such a simple idea, and in the end, it wasn't realized. 2 years later, when Xiao Hua bypassed Meng country, circled into Huan country, and finally rushed into Shi country. When he arrived in the vicinity of Imperial Thunder Sect, Daoist Jingyu still couldn't catch up. In the end, Xiao Hua's bright thunder escape was forced to practice to the extreme, but he couldn't break through to the thunder eclipse stage. Because of this, Daoist Jingyu was no longer able to steadily catch up with Xiao Hua. Occasionally, he had to rely on secret techniques to find Xiao Hua's whereabout. In fact, Xiao Hua couldn't be blamed for teasing Daoist Jingyu, who was a nascent soul cultivator. Xiao Hua had already been flying in a mess, so how could he know which direction was Imperial Thunder Sect? He could go from Meng country to Huan country, discover the wrong direction in time, and didn't rush into the sword cultivator's territory. Instead, he returned to Shi country in time, which made Daoist Jingyu laugh his head off. Besides, our family's Xiao Hua is sowing seeds, and good deeds must be done along the way. Along the way, who knows how many rice seeds have been sowed, and who knows how many commoners have benefited from this. Seeing the familiar mountain range, which was the place where Xiao Hua experienced the lightning tribulation for the first time with Zun Shu and the others, Xiao Hua's heart settled. He had already used the last drop of earth crystal yarrow milk, and there was still a lot of unrefined spiritual energy left in his meridians. Moreover, there were still many grains of earth crystal yarrow milk left in his meridians. Although the massive amount of spiritual energy had been refined, raising his realm to the peak of the middle stage of foundation establishment. However, just as Daoist Jing Ayu thought, if he flew for a while longer, even if Daoist Jing Ayu didn't kill Xiao Hua's body and meridians would absolutely not be able to withstand the spiritual energy that couldn't be refined, and he would explode to death as Daoist Jing Ayu predicted. Of course, now that he was already in Imperial Thunder Sect's territory, Xiao Hua could naturally calm down, properly adjust his meridians, and stabilize his realm. Using a few years of effort to raise his cultivation level from the middle stage of foundation establishment to the peak stage was like forcing an infant boy to climb up a cliff. If he was not careful, he would be doomed eternally. Xiao Hua suddenly stopped. His face flashed with an earthy yellow color. It was obvious that the spiritual aura in his body was surging. Xiao Hua hurriedly operated his cultivation method to suppress it. He laughed loudly and fully operated his cultivation method. He transmitted his voice, senior nascent soul with deep feelings, "Thank you for escorting me all the way back to the Imperial Thunder Sect from the Gui He Sea. You even gave me a cauldron for refining weapons. This Xiao will never forget this kind of righteousness. Right now, this Xiao has already returned to the entrance of my Imperial Thunder Sect. This Xiao sincerely invites Senior to come to my Imperial Thunder Sect for a chat. This little one has delicious spirit wine to offer. I also want to have a drink with Senior and discuss with Senior about the wind, frost, snow, and rain along the way. Then, we should talk about life, love." Oh, wrong, those are for female cultivators. With a Senior of such noble character and unquestionable integrity, we should talk about how to give away our magical treasures to others without making them feel grateful to us. This is a very difficult thing to do. In addition, if possible, I ask Senior to bestow me a name. This junior will definitely engrave it in my heart. In the future, if I see Senior's disciple or Senior's disciple, this junior will definitely give them a peach and repay them with a plum. Since Senior is unwilling to return to the Imperial Thunder Sect with this Xiao, then this Xiao has no other choice. Xiao Hua simply didn't care whether Daoist Jing Sai could hear him or not. He continued, "This Xiao has no way to repay Senior's kindness. This low-grade spirit stone will be this Xiao's reward. I also ask Senior to not dislike it. As the saying goes, a goose feather sent from 1,000 miles away is light, but the feelings are more important. Senior's gift to this junior is not just 1,000 miles, this little one's spirit stone is also much more valuable than a goose feather. Don't say, this junior has never given anyone a spirit stone before. Senior is the first." Xiao Hua's Buddhist sense swept over. He had already seen Daoist Jing Sai several dozen miles away. His nose was crooked from anger. He waved his hand and the low-grade spirit stone flew over. Soon after, he no longer cared about what was behind him and flew towards the Imperial Thunder Sect like a wisp of smoke. Puff! Daoist Jing Sai spat out a mouthful of blood on the flying swallow. At this time, Xiao Hua's magic power was truly profound. Daoist Jing Sai was also on top of the magic tool, so he had already heard these words. He had exhausted all the spirit pills in his storage pouch and exhausted all the magic power in his body, but unexpectedly, he couldn't even touch a single hair on Xiao Hua's head. How could he not be angry? His heart was originally filled with anger. Being lured by Xiao Hua like this, he immediately vomited blood. However, not to mention that he couldn't catch up to Xiao Hua now, even if he could, the Imperial Thunder Sect's territory was in front of him. If he rashly entered, not only would the matter of him chasing Xiao Hua be exposed, he would also provoke some trouble by coming to the Imperial Thunder Sect for no reason. He had no choice but to stop. At the same time Daoist Jing Sai stopped, he immediately urged his primordial spirit to sense his life source magic treasure. Unfortunately, it was the same as the countless times he had sensed it in the past 2 years. That one gasification divine furnace seemed to not exist. There wasn't any movement. This brat is bullying me too much. Not only did he take this old man's magic treasure, he even used words to despise this old man. Daoist Jing Sai shouted loudly. He stood up and hatefully stamped his foot. Soon after, his eyes flashed with a trace of severity. "Mph, don't look at how you're somewhat well off now. You know your own situation. Previously, your face had a faint yellow brilliance. Wasn't that because too much spiritual energy had been deposited in your body? Even if you return to the Imperial Thunder Sect and ask Daoist Thunder Meng to take action and stabilize your realm, what about yourself? Your cultivation? Can you still take another step forward? In the end, other people's stable realms aren't your own." Ha ha ha! Daoist Jing Sai spat out a mouthful of congested blood. He also felt a lot more carefree. He laughed a few times, patted the flying swallow, turned around, and left. As for Xiao Hua, who had executed the bright thunder escape art to the extreme, his heart was also perturbed. After all, this lightning escape art was something that even Reverend Lei Tan did not cultivate. How could his execution of this art not attract attention? But under Daoist Jing Sai's coercion, he still prioritized preserving his life. When Xiao Hua saw that Daoist Jing Sai had unexpectedly stopped in midair, his heart was overjoyed. He immediately reduced his flying speed and changed to an ordinary flying technique. He slowly moved forward. Of course, he was moving. Just a moment ago, he was still a rabbit, but now he was a tortoise. Xiao Hua didn't hear Daoist Jing Sai's words. Currently, Daoist Jing Sai's magic power consumption was enormous. He was unwilling to spend energy in this aspect. After all, he still had to return to Meng with his tail between his leg. Damn it, I finally got rid of this guy. Xiao Hua let out a long sigh of relief. He felt uncomfortable all over. Not only was his physical body sore, there was also a dull pain in his meridians, and even extreme mental exhaustion. Xiao Hua's physical body had been tempered by the lightning tribulation, Xiao Hua's meridians were operated by the dragon transformation art, and Xiao Hua also cultivated secret techniques such as the celestial body bestowment technique. Although Xiao Hua had too many yes, he had used up 2 drops of earth crystal yarrow milk within 2 years. This half drop of earth crystal yarrow milk could temper the physical body of a late gold core stage cultivator, allowing them to rely on this physical body to step into the nascent soul stage. Xiao Hua had actually used 3 times as much. He was a foundation establishment cultivator. Even if his cultivation was comparable to the middle gold core stage, he still couldn't bear it. I was chased for thousands of miles and forced for 2 years, but in the end, I still don't know who this guy is. After escaping from death, Xiao Hua was still somewhat gnashing his teeth. In his heart, he understood that in the end, his flying technique had already surpassed the nascent soul cultivator's magic tool. He could have escaped earlier, but he also wanted to see if he could find a flaw in the other party's technique. He wanted to see if he could find out the other party's background, so that he could know the origin of his enemy. From there, he could find out why he came to the Dawn Rain continent from the 10,000 demon realm. Forget it. Since I know the appearance of the person who came, there are only so many nascent soul stage cultivators on the Dawn Rain continent. I can always find out who the person who sealed me is. Xiao Hua thought hatefully, but, if that enemy is too powerful, I don't know if my Imperial Thunder Sect can come out for me. His divine sense swept across the road that he had flown before, and a trace of homesickness suddenly appeared in the bottom of Xiao Hua's heart. It was as if he was a wanderer returning home, and when he came close, he felt a kind of attachment, a kind of security, a kind of peace, and a kind of expectation. This was a feeling that Xiao Hua had never felt before. Maybe I'm old. Xiao Hua touched his nose and secretly laughed. It said that only the old will be nostalgic. In the past, I didn't have much of a sense of belonging to the Imperial Thunder Sect, but now I actually think so much. It's good to have a sect. Not only do you have cultivation methods and pills, even if someone is chasing you, you have a harbor to hide in, and a place to escape to. So many disciples of cultivation families and rogue cultivators want to join a cultivation sect, This is probably a more important reason. Oh right, I don't know if Xue Xue is back yet. Xiao Hua was a little emotional, and immediately thought of Xue Xue. He hurriedly clapped his hands, took out a 1,000 miles sound-transmitting talisman, and threw it in the air with his magic power. Haha, great! Seeing that the red-yellow talisman didn't fly elsewhere, but directly flew to the Imperial Thunder Sect, Xiao Hua was overjoyed, knowing that Xue Xue had returned safely. Xiao Hua flew to the Sky Thunder Peak while waiting for Xiao Hua's response, or Xue Xue's warm welcome. However, before Xiao Hua could see Xue Xue, he saw a group of Qi refining disciples flying over. Hey! How come there are disciples traveling again? Xiao Hua thought to himself, but then he changed his mind and laughed inwardly. Of course, I've been gone for nearly 10 years. Isn't today the Foundation Establishment experimental learning for Qi refining disciples? Greetings, Martial Uncle. When the several disciples in front saw Xiao Hua, they didn't care whether Xiao Hua was a disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect, and hurriedly bowed to pay their respects. "Yen, you all are going to Foundation Establishment experimental learning," Xiao Hua said with a smile. "Yes, Martial Uncle knows, we juniors are going to look for an opportunity to Foundation Establishment." The quick-witted disciples hurriedly replied, "I don't know if Martial Uncle has any instructions, please give us some pointers." -8. Chapter 2179. Xiao Hua smiled and waved his hand, saying, "Everyone has their own fate, others can't use it as a reference. However, if you wholeheartedly follow the Tao, treat others with compassion, and cultivate with sincerity, the heavens will certainly take care of you." "Yes, we understand." The several disciples were confused, and some even showed disdain on their faces. Xiao Hua understood that he was still concealing his cultivation level to the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, and his appearance was so young. In other people's eyes, wasn't he just lucky enough to enter the Foundation Establishment realm? Admittedly, this was what Xiao Hua really said, but in other people's ears, most of them were perfunctory, and a few were showing off, right? Xiao Hua didn't say much. He flew up and smiled at the disciples who came out to gain experience. There were so many aura-refining disciples who went out to gain experience, and many of them came back, but what about those who entered the Foundation Establishment realm? How many could there be? Among the oncoming Qi refining disciples, Xiao Hua actually saw a few familiar faces, but when he thought about it carefully, he couldn't remember them clearly. However, when he saw these disciples evade him and fly away, Xiao Hua already understood that they should be fellow disciples who had joined the Imperial Thunder Sect with him, or he had met them when he went out to gain experience in the past. Alas, Xiao Hua sighed. He knew what they were thinking, so he pretended he didn't see them and flew directly to Sky Thunder Peak. Unexpectedly, when he arrived at Sky Thunder Peak, it was even more lively. He saw a thunder boat stopped in mid-air, and a gold core cultivator stood at the bow of the boat with his hands clasped behind his back, looking into the distance. Under the thunderboat, there were dozens of disciples and a few masters of different cultivation levels clustered around. Feather Immortal Assembly? Xiao Hua smiled. Another Feather Immortal Assembly. I wonder who will win this year. Hongxia Fairy, how are you doing in the Huan Hua sect? For no reason, Xiao Hua's heart was suddenly drowned by longing. That longing was even vaster and more boundless than the water of the Gui Sea. Xiao Hua. You've also entered the Foundation Establishment realm? A very shocked voice came from not far away. Xiao Hua's longing was interrupted by this sudden voice, and he raised his eyebrows absent-mindedly. He saw a middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator flying over with a 12th-layer aura-refining disciple. This voice came from that middle-stage Foundation Establishment cultivator. Enemies are really destined to meet. This young master had just returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect and ran into this guy. When Xiao Hua saw that cultivator, he couldn't help but be overjoyed in his heart. This cultivator was none other than Zhen Weisheng of Swallow Thunder Ridge. Greetings, senior brother Zhen. Xiao Hua wasn't polite either. He cupped his hands and called Zhen Weisheng senior martial brother, saying, "Little brother hasn't done anything outrageous, so why can't I build my foundation?" Is it strange for senior brother Zhen to see me build my foundation? Oh, right. Where's my junior martial brother Yang? What about junior brother now? Or martial nephew? The astonishment on Zhen Weisheng's face disappeared as he said coldly, even in my thunder manipulation sect, it's extremely rare to reach foundation establishment in a few decades. You have nothing to be proud of. Let this old man tell you this as your senior brother. Modesty makes one improve, while pride makes one fall behind. Fart. Xiao Hua almost fell from the sky. He smiled and said, "Many thanks for senior brother Zhen's pointers. My master told little brother several decades ago that senior brother doesn't need to worry. However, it seems that martial nephew Yang hasn't built his foundation yet, so senior brother should say these words to encourage him." Oh, right. This is also senior brother's disciple, right? Are you going to participate in the Feather Immortal Assembly? Zhen Weisheng's face was gloomy when Xiao Hua mentioned Yang Xiefeng again. Yang Xiefeng was quite famous in the Feather Immortal Assembly back then. After returning, he excitedly confronted Xiao Hua, wanting to destroy Myriad Thunder Valley's face. Who knew that he would be beaten up like a punching bag by Xiao Hua? This probably left an inner demon in his heart. It had been 10 years, but he still didn't show any signs of building his foundation. This also left a regret in Zhen Weisheng's heart. Xiao Hua poked his sore spot again and again, so how could he not be ashamed and angry? Junior Xiuqing greets martial uncle. The 12th layer Qi refinement disciple didn't know the grudge between Xiao Hua and Swallow Thunder Ridge. When Xiao Hua mentioned him, he hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "Yen, this is Myriad Thunder Valley's Xiao Hua, also your Thunder Manipulation Palace's martial uncle." Zhen Weisheng pointed his hand and said, he also participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly back then with the cultivation of the 11th layer Qi refinement. Ah! Xiao Hua. Martial Uncle Xiao? Xiuqing had obviously heard of Xiao Hua's name, and her face immediately showed astonishment. "Yen, it's that Xiao Hua," Zhen Weisheng said disdainfully. "When he participated in the Feather Immortal Assembly back then, he made my Thunder Manipulation sect lose face. A female cultivator from the Washing Flower sect betrayed us on the spot. However, don't learn from him. He couldn't build his foundation for dozens of years, and in the end, who knows what kind of opportunity he encountered to reach this step. If you can't build your foundation for dozens of years, you'll make me lose face. I'll slap you to death." "Yes, disciple understands." Xiuqing naturally didn't dare to say more. She smiled embarrassedly at Xiao Hua and bowed to Zhen Weisheng. "Let's go." Zhen Weisheng didn't pay attention to Xiao Hua anymore. He waved his hand and said, "He's already on the thunderboat, don't waste time here." After saying that, Zhen Weisheng ignored Xiao Hua and flew away first. Xiuqing cupped her hands towards Xiao Hua again and activated the yellow talisman. "Hihi, this disciple called Xiuqing looks pretty good. Don't learn bad things from Zhen Weisheng." Xiao Hua smiled and said in his heart, "I don't want to kill any more disciples of the Thunder Manipulation sect." Then Xiao Hua looked at the disciples on and off the thunderboat. He didn't see anyone he was familiar with, so he didn't care. He stood up and flew towards the Myriad Thunder Valley. But what he didn't know was that when he flew far away, the middle gold core stage cultivator standing on the thunderboat looked at Xiao Hua's back and frowned. "Hey! Xiao Hua, this guy is still alive. He actually built his foundation? This is really troublesome. This favor. I have to find a way to return it." Flying close to the Myriad Thunder Valley, bursts of silent thunder rushed into Xiao Hua's ears. Just when Xiao Hua wanted to use the secret technique to avoid thunder, he felt the spiritual aura in his meridians and even in his body suddenly jump, as if it was somewhat out of control. However, before he could use the mental cultivation method in his shock, the spiritual aura flowed extremely slowly, as if it was about to be refined. Ayo! Xiao Hua suddenly woke up, and he was overjoyed. The reason why the spiritual aura was deposited was because the mental cultivation method wasn't good enough. But when the mental cultivation method was used again, new spiritual aura would enter, and this spiritual aura couldn't be refined. Over time, it would be deposited. When the mental cultivation method was used again to refine the spiritual aura, this spiritual aura would have already entered the depths of the meridians or the minor branches of the body. The mental cultivation method was already powerless. Of course, Xiao Hua didn't have the opportunity to refine the spiritual aura in detail, but his thoughts were the same as Daoist Jing Ayu's. He didn't have much confidence in his heart, but when he saw the effect of the silent thunder, Xiao Hua thought of the feeling in his body when he shattered that huge meteor in the huge stone formation. -8. Chapter 2180. Could it be that this silent thunder is also useful for the heavenly infusion technique or the bone tempering technique? Xiao Hua guessed. But then, Xiao Hua frowned. He was about to reach the myriad thunder valley, but Shue's communication talisman hadn't arrived. He didn't know why. Although he knew that Shui was safe and sound, Xiao Hua still wanted to see her with his own eyes. Which fellow Daoist came to my myriad thunder valley? While Xiao Hua was thinking, a Foundation establishment cultivator's divine sense swept over from afar, and a voice familiar to Xiao Hua was heard. He, Kui Hongshan? Xiao Hua stopped in midair with a faintly discernible smile on his face. Hey, so it's you. Kui Hongshan's divine sense swept over Xiao Hua, and he immediately recognized him. His tone carried a trace of astonishment, and a trace of surprise that almost couldn't be felt. Pleasant surprise. You were actually able to escape from the hands of Daoist Jing, are you? Kui Hongshan's second sentence made Xiao Hua even more astonished. Daoist Jing, are you? Xiao Hua was stunned. But then, his mind turned quickly, and he immediately understood what was going on. He couldn't help but feel a burst of warmth in his heart. Shui, you are really my wife. Who is Daoist Jing, are you? Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows. Strange. Kui Hongshan flew closer, looked up and down at Xiao Hua, and said indifferently, Shui rushed back to the Imperial Thunder Sect 2 years ago, and first came to my myriad Thunder Valley, saying that you were being chased by a nascent soul cultivator, and wanted us to save you. But, you also know that Master is only at the late stage of Foundation establishment. How could he dare to provoke a nascent soul cultivator? So, he took Shui to the Thunder Palace to see Daoist Lei Meng. When Shui described the appearance of the nascent soul cultivator, Daoist Lei Meng knew that it was Changbai Sect's Daoist Jing Yu. So, we naturally knew that this was the trouble you caused at the Feather Immortal Assembly. Kui Hongshan said coldly, since you know how your body is, don't provoke some people you can't afford to provoke. Otherwise, not only will you lose your life, you will also provoke others to suffer. From his tone, it was obviously an elder reprimanding a junior. There's no need for fellow Daoist Kui to worry. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said indifferently. He didn't say another word. I naturally won't worry about it. Everything will be decided by Master. Kui Hongshan didn't say much. He clapped his hands, took out the messaging talisman, and said a few words. Then, he raised his hand and sent it out. He then said, I'm patrolling the Myriad Thunder Valley today, so I won't take you back. Master is in the cave residence today. Got it. Xiao Hua didn't wait for Kui Hongshan to finish speaking. With a flick of his sleeves, he grew taller than Kui Hongshan by half a figure. Then, he swept past Kui Hongshan and flew towards the Immortal's cave in the Myriad Thunder Valley. However, before he could fly for half an hour, a communication talisman flew back and landed in the hands of Kui Hongshan, whose face was slightly pale. Kui Hongshan took the communication talisman and looked at it. A trace of helplessness appeared on his face. Then, he flew up and followed Xiao Hua to the Immortal's cave. Before he could fly to the Immortal's cave, the Immortal's divine sense swept over. However, it only swept over Xiao Hua's body for a moment before withdrawing. It didn't stay for too long. Meanwhile, Zhuo Minghui's figure was already standing outside the Immortal's cave. When Xiao Hua saw his master's wife, his nose turned sour for no reason. An inexplicable sadness welled up in his heart. Xiao Hua landed early without leaving a trace. He quickly ran in front of Zhuo Minghui and bowed. Disciple really can't bear the burden of troubling Master's nascent soul. You child. Although Zhuo Minghui had already seen Xiao Hua, she still looked him up and down for a long time. Then, she stretched out her hand and touched Xiao Hua's hair. She said lovingly, It's really hard for you to become a disciple of your master. Although this sentence didn't have much explanation, it was really better than a million sentences. Xiao Hua's previous unhappiness because of Kui Hongshan immediately disappeared. I don't dare. It's all because disciple is too naughty and has caused trouble for master. He bowed again and said very sincerely. Hehe, it's not naughty at all. At this time, Kui Hongshan also stepped forward to greet Zhuo Minghui. When Zhuo Minghui saw Kui Hongshan's appearance, she obviously already knew that he had suffered in front of Xiao Hua. She smiled and said, "Your eldest senior brother is too slow. Hongshan is also a man of the rules. If it weren't for a naughty disciple like you, master's wife would be really boring. Disciple understands. Disciple will do his best to learn from eldest senior brother," Xiao Hua said hurriedly. Hearing that Xiao Hua still didn't mention Kui Hongshan, Zhuo Minghui smiled bitterly. However, she stretched out her hand and pulled Xiao Hua. "Let's go, let's enter the Immortals' cave first. These past 2 years, your master has been worried about you. However, you also know that Daoist Jing Yu is a nascent soul cultivator. Even Daoist Lei Meng isn't willing to easily offend him. The news that Xue brought back was without any evidence. You also didn't have any verbal message or evidence to take back to the sect. Therefore, master's wife, hasn't disciple returned safely? Don't mention the past." Xiao Hua stopped Zhuo Minghui from continuing and said with a smile, "Everything is a misunderstanding. Disciple will carefully report to master when I see him." "Good." Zhuo Minghui beamed with joy. Everything was fake. As long as Xiao Hua returned safely, that was what she cared about the most. Xiao Hua was pulled into the Immortals' cave by Zhuo Minghui. However, he saw that everything in the Immortals' cave was the same as before. Even the helpless expression on his face was the same as before. He still hated iron for not becoming steel. Disciple greets master. Xiao Hua faintly felt that something was wrong. He hurriedly stepped forward and bowed. "What? You've finally built your foundation?" she said faintly and helplessly. "When your eldest senior brother came back, he said that you've already built your foundation. It's already been 10 years. How come you're still at the early stage of foundation establishment? Your cultivation and realm also haven't improved. Look at Xue. Although she went out with you and even built her foundation later than you, look at her cultivation. It's practically similar to your senior brother Kui's. How did you cultivate? Did you cultivate a dog's body? You're really embarrassing me." "Ari," Xiao Hua sighed in his heart. He just knew that Wu would say this. It was also because he knew that Wu would say this that Xiao Hua especially maintained his newly built foundation cultivation. In the end, he wanted to see if Wu would say this. Sweat, isn't this a bit of reverse psychology? Cough cough, Zhuo Minghui seized the opportunity to cough twice, interrupting Wu's words. She glanced at the embarrassed Xiao Hua and rebuked, "Husband, you can't say that. Although Xiao Hua's cultivation hasn't improved, that's because his foundation is weak. However, didn't you hear what Xiong said? Xiong and Qing Lian were both saved by him. Moreover, that thing was also obtained by Xiao Hua. Old man, you also benefited a lot from it. In these 2 years, you've also racked your brains to find someone to help you. Now that you're here, you're blaming the child? What nonsense are you saying?" Wu glared at Zhuo Minghui in annoyance and said, "This kind of disciple that makes me lose face, I can't wait for him to not return." Those were all words that Xiong made up and specially placed on Xiao Hua. He just built his foundation, how could he save 2 people? You even believe these words? Zhuo Minghui covered her mouth and laughed. "Since that's the case, last year when my Imperial Thunder sect was recruiting disciples again, why didn't you go?" "That's because Myriad Thunder Valley was busy with official business, I didn't have time." Wu curled his lips even more. "If I were to look again, I definitely wouldn't find another disciple like this guy." Zhuo Minghui didn't say anything more to Wu. She glanced at Xiao Hua and said, "Xiao Hua, sit down and wait for a moment. Today is the day that Leah returns to the valley. Your eldest senior brother has already gone to pick him up and will be back soon." "Yes, disciple understands." When Xiao Hua heard Xiong Zhili mentioned, he immediately thought of the baby that was born 10 years ago. He couldn't help but smile and wanted to take a seat. However, at this time, Zhuo Minghui was sitting on Wu Hai's left, while Kui Hongshan sat on the right, which happened to be the second chair. Xiao Hua naturally couldn't sit on top of him, but he also didn't want to sit below him. Xiao Hua hesitated for a moment, then walked over to Zhuo Minghui's side and picked up the last chair to sit on. Seeing Xiao Hua like this, Wu Hai was somewhat angry and scolded, "This little bastard, husband." Zhuo Minghui said with a smile, "Xiao Hua hasn't seen me for a long time, so he wants to be intimate with me." "Look at you." Wu Hai snorted coldly and didn't say anything else. After a moment, the sound of footsteps came from outside the cave, and a sweet voice sounded, martial ancestor, I'm back, I'm back." Following a series of chaotic noises, a young boy dressed like a piece of jade bounced into the cave dwelling. When he heard the boy's voice, Wu Hai's gloomy face, which was like rain, immediately cleared up after the rain. It was really like the saying, "The sky is clear and bright." If it wasn't for his status, he would have stood up long ago. The boy ran in very habitually, and his eyes had already swept across the entire cave. His gaze immediately landed on Xiao Hua, a stranger. However, this unfamiliarity only lasted for a moment. Then, a fervent light flashed in his eyes. Of course, the boy only looked at Xiao Hua before immediately retracting his gaze. He walked in front of Wu Hai and respectfully bowed. "Li greets martial ancestor. I haven't seen martial ancestor for more than a month. I wonder if martial ancestor is well." "Ha ha ha. I'm well, I'm well." Wu Hai said with a smile, "I wonder if Li has made any progress in this month." "Good boy, this is Xiong Zhili." Xiao Hua knew that this was Xiong Zhili, but when he saw that this boy, who was almost 10 years old, actually had the cultivation of the 7th layer of qi refining, he was still shocked in his heart. Damn it, there's really no way to compare. Back then, I didn't know how much effort I spent to cultivate to the 7th layer. This guy is just 10 years old, and is already at the 7th layer. Li is very obedient, he can already refine yellow talismans. As Xiong Zhili spoke, he patted his hand and took out a fireball talisman from the small storage pouch at his waist. Under the urging of magic power, a large fireball was born, and the surrounding spiritual energy of heaven and earth swarmed in. It was actually a high-grade fireball talisman. -8. Chapter 2181. Ha ha ha, very good, very good. With a helpless flick of her sleeve, she covered the fireball and laughed. With a disciple like Xiong Zhili in my 10,000 Thunder Valley, who would dare to look down on my 10,000 Thunder Valley? Li greets martial grandmother. Xiong Zhili obediently bowed to Zhuo Minghui. "Get up." Zhuo Minghui smiled and said, "Where are your parents?" "Father and mother returned to the cave first." Xiong Zhili answered with a smile. Boy listened to their discussion and prepared for the second. Martial Uncle Kui's dual cultivation ceremony in 3 years, and then came over immediately. "Hehe, you're really the eldest martial brother." Zhuo Minghui glanced at Kui Hongshan, her words seeming to have a double meaning. Dual cultivation ceremony. Xiao Hua suddenly understood and thought of Dui Chimeng, who he saw before he went out to train. Sweat. This guy hasn't dual cultivated yet. How many years has it been? Xiao Hua suddenly realized. This guy already reported to master that he wants to dual cultivate. Doesn't that mean this young master has to postpone it? Damn it, this guy still wants to block this young master's happiness even now. When Kui Hongshan heard this, his face turned slightly red. "Li greets martial uncle." Xiong Zhili walked in front of Kui Hongshan and bowed. "Good." Kui Hongshan waved his hand and said, "My good Li I haven't seen you for a month, and your cultivation has improved greatly. Foundation establishment is just around the corner. You flatter me, I don't dare to compare myself to martial uncle," Xiong Zhili said very modestly. When Xiong Zhili stood up, Zhuo Minghui was about to tell him about Xiao Hua, but who would have thought that Xiong Zhili would run in front of Xiao Hua? He didn't need to be introduced at all, and even exceeded everyone's expectations. With a plop, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed. Leah greets martial uncle. Ah! Not only was Xiao Hua stunned, but he also opened his mouth in shock and even raised his hand in a daze. A trace of understanding flashed through Zhuo Minghui's eyes, and the corners of her mouth turned up into a smile. Kui Hongshan, on the other hand, was frowning slightly. There was an indescribable feeling in his heart. He knew very well that Xiong Zhili had been born with a heavenly lightning constitution and was the first disciple of the third generation of the Myriad Thunder Valley. He had doted on him since he was young and had given him countless benefits, but he had never seen Xiong Zhili treat him like this. And what about Xiao Hua? This seemed to be Xiong Zhili's first time seeing it. Before anyone could introduce him, Xiong Zhili had already identified Xiao Hua. Needless to say, behind his back, Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian had said this countless times in front of Xiong Zhili, and even more so, they had warned him countless times. Xiao Hua. Is he really worth bowing to? Kui Hongshan couldn't help but secretly ask. Sure enough, before Kui Hongshan could think of anything, Xiong Zhili opened his mouth and said, "Uncle, you don't need to be surprised. When the boy was young, my father had already told the boy that the lives of my father, mother, and boy were all saved by Uncle. If not for Uncle's strength, there would be no boy in this world. My father had already told Uncle's appearance clearly and said that Uncle's appearance wouldn't change even after 10,000 years. He had repeatedly told the boy that as long as he saw Uncle, he must kowtow 9 times. As he spoke, Xiong Zhili slammed his forehead on the ground of the cave abode with a loud bang. This. Xiao Hua panicked and raised his hand slightly to stop Xiong Zhili. He looked at Xiong Zhili in embarrassment. Since it's the heart of a child, don't block it. Xiong Zhili originally wanted to say something, but when he saw Zhuo Minghui glare at him, he went with the flow and said, "Oh. Okay." Xiao Hua said helplessly. However, after Xiong Zhili finished kowtowing 9 times, he stood up and said, "Moreover, my father also said that the boy should acknowledge Uncle as his adoptive father. Since Uncle wants the boy to kowtow, then, in the future, the boy will call Uncle as his adoptive father." Ah! When Xiao Hua heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He was very clear in his heart that this definitely wasn't his honest senior brother's idea. Perhaps it was Yang Qinglian or even Xiong Zhili's own idea. If it was any other disciple who used such a cunning method, Xiao Hua would definitely look down on it and wouldn't even hesitate to reject it. However, this was a child of his own Myriad Thunder Valley. No matter how he looked at it, this child was intelligent. Xiao Hua didn't have any thoughts of rejecting it. In fact, he was even happy for his senior brother. Just as Xiao Hua was hesitating, the sound of footsteps came from outside the cave. Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian walked in. Before they even took a few steps, their eyes immediately lit up and they shouted, "Little junior brother, you. When did you come back? Shue Shue said that you would definitely come back. I was worried to death. I didn't think that you really came back." Xiong Yang also didn't care about Xiong Zhili and bowed. He took a few steps forward and hugged Xiao Hua in his arms. He patted Xiao Hua's thin shoulders with all his strength. Xiao Hua's heart was also warm. He knew that if it wasn't for Xiong Yang being too surprised to see him, he definitely wouldn't have not greeted Xiong Yang first. "Thank you for your concern, senior brother. Little brother also just came back." Xiao Hua also patted Xiong Yang's back and said in a low voice, Good, it's good that you're back," Xiong Yang said. He turned around and looked at Xiong Zhili and scolded, "What did father teach you? Now that your uncle is in front of you, hurry up and kowtow." Looking at Xiong Yang's helpless face, Xiao Hua was speechless. Xiong Zhili stuck out his tongue and said respectfully, "I'll let father know. Boy has already paid his respects to uncle. Moreover, uncle has already agreed to be boy's adoptive father." "What? Adoptive father?" Xiong Yang was stunned. "Yes, uncle is too polite. Didn't father say that adoptive father is closer?" Xiong Zhili blinked his eyes at Xiong Yang and said very innocently, "Boy was thinking that adoptive father worked so hard to save boy's family. Boy will wait until boy's cultivation is successful in the future and he will properly protect father, mother, and adoptive father." "You little brat, what are you trying to do with your foster father?" Xiong glared at Xiong Zhili in exasperation. All right, Xiao Hua smiled. Since Xiong had already put this adoptive father in his mouth, what else could he say? He clapped his hands as if to take out something, but then he hesitated and said with a smile, since the child has already kowtowed, I can't let the child kowtow for nothing. Little brother will accept this adoptive father. Although Yang Qinglian didn't step forward, her eyes were filled with anticipation. When she heard Xiao Hua's words, her eyes flashed with a strange light. She hurriedly bowed and said, Your adoptive father has already nodded. Hurry up and pay your respects. Boy greets adoptive father. This time, Xiong Zhili didn't kowtow. Instead, he bowed respectfully, just like a little adult. Get up. Xiao Hua only reached out to help him up, and said, You can't kowtow for nothing, but adoptive father doesn't have anything good to give you. Wait a moment, let adoptive father think carefully, and see what good things I can give you. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian. Come to vote for it. -8. Chapter 2182. Hehe, I don't need anything. As long as I can call you adoptive father, I'll be able to stay by your side and receive your guidance. Xiong Zhili acted like an adult and hurriedly waved his hand with a smile. Martial uncle and martial ancestor have already given boy many good things. Boy can't even use them. That's right. Xiong immediately stood in front of Xiong Zhili and smiled. The child is still young. Let's talk about it later. Don't. Xiao Hua wouldn't let that happen. He grabbed Xiong Zhili, and with a flash of light, a defensive artifact appeared on his body. Ignoring Xiong, he handed it to Xiong Zhili and said, You've already called me adoptive father. If I don't give you anything, people will say I'm stingy. As he spoke, he didn't forget to glance at Kui Hongshan. Kui Hongshan's expression was very unsightly. Was there even a need to say it? Was he trying to compete with him? He could only give Xiong Zhili some small trinkets. As for artifacts, he didn't even have ordinary artifacts, let alone defensive artifacts. How could he give it to others? Helplessly, he could only give Xiong Zhili some magic tools. However, when he saw that Xiao Hua had actually given his own magic tool to Xiong Zhili, he felt happy in his heart. He felt that Xiao Hua had finally understood some things, and he couldn't help but reveal a faint smile. Although Xiong Zhili's eyes flashed with surprise, he still waved his hand and said, Adoptive father, this is your defensive artifact. Boy, how can I accept it? You still have to travel the Xiaoyu continent. Take it. Xiao Hua glared at him and pretended to be angry. If you don't take it, I won't let you call me adoptive father. All right, Li take it. Xiong said helplessly to Xiong Zhili. Your adoptive father's artifact isn't a defensive artifact. It's an artifact. You have to cultivate properly and strive to be able to use this artifact as soon as possible. Your adoptive father gave you this artifact to urge you to cultivate. Seeing Xiong constantly implicating cultivation, Xiao Hua was speechless. He didn't want to urge Xiong Zhili to cultivate. He really didn't have anything suitable to give Xiong Zhili. Everything in his space was shocking and couldn't be casually exposed. A defensive artifact. This is extremely rare. Xiong Zhili was also a disciple of a famous teacher, so he knew how precious defensive treasures were. He took it with great fondness. Looking at Xiong Zhili's joy, he felt helpless but also happy. In front of Xiao Hua, an extremely rare smile appeared on his face. He waved his hand and said, All right, Leah, acknowledging Xiao Hua as his adoptive father is a good thing. My 10,000 Thunder Valley hasn't had any happy events for a long time. First, the date of Hongshan's dual cultivation is about to be set. Now that Xiao Hua has returned, we should take advantage of this opportunity to liven things up. Xiong, discuss a date with Qing Lian and hold a ceremony to let Li acknowledge Xiao Hua as his adoptive father. Also, let your master's close disciples come and pay their respect. Yes, I understand. Xiong was naturally happy. That day, he had wanted Xiong Zhili to acknowledge Xiao Hua as his master, but he hadn't expected to be rejected by Xiao Hua so quickly. This foster father was naturally closer to Xiongzhili than a master. Although Xiao Hua wouldn't teach Xiongzhili anything, he could at least protect Xiongzhili. No one knew Xiao Hua's strength better than Xiong. Of course, this strength was already equivalent to Xiao Hua's early-stage foundation establishment cultivation. Hihi, master's wife, let's liven things up ourselves. Why do we need to find other people? Xiao Hua didn't like liveliness and said with a smile. There's no need to mention other people. Chimeng, Xue Xue, Zun Shu, and the others are also coming. Zhuo Minghui very abruptly mentioned Zun Shu. Fine. Xiao Hua nodded, but soon after, he said, when I returned to the mountain, I sent a summoning talisman to Xue Xue, but I haven't received a reply. I'm afraid she's in closed-door cultivation again. Hehe, that's for sure. Xiong said with a smile, your family's Xue Xue is amazing. As soon as she reached foundation establishment, her magic power was profound, even surpassing Zun Shu. Martial Uncle Zun thinks highly of her and taught her many secret techniques. As he said this, he clapped his hands, took out a jade slip, and handed it over. He said, this is what Xue Xue asked me to pass on when she went into closed-door cultivation for the first time after she returned. She thought you'd be back soon, but she didn't expect it to drag on for so long. That's right, little junior brother, you. Yang Qinglian's eyes turned, and she said in a low voice, that Master Jing Sai is really shameless. As a nascent soul senior, he actually made things difficult for you. Let's talk after we sit down. Xiong glanced at Xiao Hua and said in a low voice. Soon after, he turned his head to greet Kui Hongshan and sat down. However, after he sat down, he discovered that Xiao Hua was actually sitting across from him. A trace of a bitter smile unconsciously appeared on his face. Yang Qinglian also sensed it. She smiled and instructed Xiongzhili, you're now a 7th layer qi refining cultivator. Go sit below your martial uncle. Don't always accompany your mother, it makes people think you're not growing up. Yes, boy understands. Xiongzhili didn't understand. He stuck out his small chest, and as if he really had grown up, he valiantly sat next to Kui Hongshan. Xiao Hua, what's going on with Master Jing Sai? Xiong waited for Xiongzhili to sit down before asking, why did you take so long to return to the mountain? Xiao Hua had already thought about it. He smiled and said, it's nothing. Not long after I parted ways with Xue Xue in the Heavenly Sea, I was captured by Master Jing Sai. However, he didn't tell me who he was. He took me. Soon after, Xiao Hua fabricated the story of him being captured by Master Jing Sai and then being punished. Of course, Xiao Hua didn't know any of these details. After all, he was imprisoned by Master Jing Sai. Oh, you're saying Master Jing Sai, who has always been extremely protective of his own, actually let you go after a slight punishment? Xiong didn't quite believe it. After he knew it was Master Jing Sai who made a move and then inquired about that guy's character, he had long regarded Xiao Hua as extremely dangerous, so much so that he was already dead. However, whether Xiong believed it or not wasn't important. What was important was that Xiao Hua also said innocently, yes, I also don't know why. Before I returned to the Imperial Thunder Sect, I simply didn't know who Master Jing Sai was. I also didn't know what this nascent soul cultivator was doing. What could Xiong say? Could it be that he blamed Master Jing Sai for not killing Xiao Hua? When I saw Xiao Hua, I mentioned Master Jing Sai's name to him. It seems he also didn't know. Kui Hongshan also said, I'm afraid Xiao Hua really didn't know that person was Master Jing Sai. Perhaps because Xiao Hua's cultivation was too shallow, Master Jing Sai was really embarrassed to make a move. Zhuo Minghui also frowned and said, even us late-stage foundation establishment cultivators or golden core cultivators are embarrassed to make a move against an early-stage foundation establishment cultivator. He, a nascent soul senior, was also afraid of being talked about and losing face. I can only think like that. Xiong helplessly glared at Xiao Hua and said, I didn't expect that your low cultivation could also become the reason for your survival. You still have to thank Master Jing Sai for being lenient and not easily taking your life. Master, Xiong said with a smile, Since he didn't let junior brother know his identity, he naturally just took it out on him to vent his anger. If we were to make it clear, wouldn't we make him lose face? This matter, let's just leave it as it is. We'll be happy secretly. H, that's all we can do. Xiangyang helplessly said, if I had known earlier, I wouldn't have given up. At this point, he helplessly stopped talking and ordered, since Xiao Hua has already built his foundation, he must leave his life spirit tablet in my Zhenlei Palace. Xiangyang, tomorrow, accompany him to Zhenlei Palace. After leaving his life spirit tablet, take the tablet to Zhenlei Palace and get a spirit-seeking mouse. Find a place near my myriad Thunder Valley and open a residence for Xiao Hua. Yes, disciple understands. Xiangyang cupped his hands and agreed. Then, the people of Myriad Thunder Valley casually talked about some interesting things. Xiao Hua picked some unimportant things and told them about his experience with Xue Xue. Everyone listened and nodded. Xiong Zhili's eyes became even brighter. Then, Xiao Hua asked about Xiong Zhili. It turned out that Xiong Zhili didn't acknowledge anyone as his master. That year, when Xiong Zhili tested his physique in the Imperial Thunder Sect, it caused a sensation. This little guy was the direct product of a lightning beast's inner core. How could any disciple of the Imperial Thunder Sect compare to him? Even Master Lei Meng took a liking to him. Unfortunately, Xiong Zhili was too young and didn't have any cultivation. As a nascent soul cultivator, Master Lei Meng didn't have the patience to teach him. Therefore, he sent him to Zhenlei Palace and let him listen to the lectures with the other disciples. Master Lei Meng ordered that as long as Xiong Zhili was willing to learn and could learn, he must learn. After he built his foundation, Master Lei Meng might personally teach him. Acknowledging a nascent soul cultivator as a master was the wish of all foundation establishment disciples, not to mention Qi refining disciples. Although Xiong Zhili didn't really acknowledge a master, he couldn't build his foundation with his current cultivation. All the disciples of the Imperial Thunder Sect with lightning physique couldn't build their foundation. Therefore, there was no difference between acknowledging Xiong Zhili as a master and not acknowledging a master. Therefore, Xiong Zhili usually cultivated in Zhenlei Palace. Every month or so, Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian would bring him back. Now, Xiong Zhili was the treasure of Myriad Thunder Valley. Not only did he give face to Wu Hai, Xiong Zhili's aptitude also made Wu Hai dumbfounded. After facing Xiangyang and Xiao Hua for a long time, Wu Hai finally saw the excellence of his third-generation disciple. He had long held Xiong Zhili in his hands. Although Wu Hai doted on him, Xiong Zhili was extremely intelligent. Under Xiangyang's care, he was naughty and methodical. Take today's meeting with Xiao Hua for example. If it were any other child, after paying respects to Wu Hai and Zhuo Minghui, they would have directly paid their respects to Xiao Hua. But he had to respectfully pay his respects to Kui Hongshan before kowtowing to Xiao Hua. As for acknowledging Xiao Hua as his adoptive father, that was his own idea. There was no other reason but because Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian, husband and wife, were talking to each other and their tone was full of admiration for Xiao Hua. This little guy had his own thoughts. -8. Chapter 2183. How else could it be said? Some people's luck was innate, and others couldn't even ask for it. It couldn't be helped. This was the legendary the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Zhong Haoran and the others had probably received Xiao Hua's test, and in the future, they would be able to part the dark clouds and see the bright moon. But Xiong Zhili only had to kowtow a few times, and the road ahead had already reached the heavens. This child. Xiao Hua looked at Xiong Zhili with a smile. Where was the dissatisfaction of being schemed against? At this time, Xiao Hua had already left the cave and was sitting in Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian's cave. It's all because of my poor upbringing. Yang Qinglian hurriedly smiled apologetically. She knew that Xiao Hua was still a little petty, especially from Kui Hongshan today. Not at all. Xiao Hua waved his hand. They are all my juniors. If I don't help him, who else can I help? However, the gift for the child is a bit too little. I really feel bad about it. Ha ha ha, you still feel bad about it. Xiangyang laughed. Little junior brother, what else do you want to give him? He's still too young. It's really inappropriate to give him too much. Xiao Hua scratched his head, and his heart moved again. He nodded and said, that magic treasure is nothing. As for the rest, I already have some ideas. However, this matter is a bit tricky. However, I'll take a look. I'll definitely make senior brother satisfied. Then, he looked at Xiong Zhili and said, Li Er, you go back and rest first. Foster father has something to say to your parents. Xiao Hua's words were a bit inappropriate. After all, this was Xiangyang's cave. However, Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian didn't show any dissatisfaction. Xiong Zhili was even more happy. Knowing that Xiao Hua didn't blame him for his decision today, he immediately stood up and bowed. Yes, this boy originally wanted to accompany foster father. However, this boy must obey foster father's orders. Then, Xiong Zhili saluted Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian and slowly left. He, senior brother. Xiao Hua looked at Xiong Zhili's back and said with a smile, Li Er really missed you. His future cultivation will definitely be extraordinary. Ha. Xiangyang smiled modestly and shook his head. I didn't know what master was thinking before. I always felt that he blamed me for nothing. But now that I have my own child, I know that it seems that I have to compete with others in everything. Although there was no need to compare, and it was fine to let the child cultivate on his own, but seeing that other people could cultivate it, his own child couldn't. It was clearly a simple technique, but he couldn't understand it. How could he not be angry? When Li Er was young, I also taught him a lesson. What's there to talk about having an extraordinary cultivation? It's all fake. Yang Qinglian echoed, as a matter of fact, we will be satisfied as long as our children can live the life that they want. Training and achievements are more like coercion for our children than expectations. Ha. Xiao Hua scratched his head. This little brother really doesn't know. Ha. Xiangyang laughed and patted his shoulder. You'll find out sooner or later. Isn't that so? Yang Qinglian also pursed her lips and smiled. It can't be too little, right? Fine. Xiao Hua's face reddened as he begged for mercy. Senior brother and eldest sister-in-law, please don't joke about this little brother. This little brother let Li Er go because of two things. Oh. Xiangyang glanced at Yang Qinglian. Both of them were somewhat serious, knowing that Xiao Hua had something important to say. Sure enough, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a rainbow epiphyllum and handed it over. He said with a smile, this little brother's experience really has some gains. As for what this thing is used for, this little brother won't go into detail. Although Li Er has Reverend Lei Meng watching over him, there's no need to worry too much about him developing his divine sense when he builds his foundation. However, it's better to prepare early than to beg others. This thing looks extremely old. This little brother was too embarrassed to take it out just now. I was also afraid that Li Er would become lazy if he knew too much. Rainbow epiphyllum? Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian's jaws were about to hit the ground. This thing was a divine item that could develop divine sense. It had always been something that could only be chanced upon and not sought. Xiangyang had already started looking for it when Xiong Zhili was at the 6th layer of qi refining, but he hadn't received any news. Especially now that the spiritual energy of heaven and earth had changed greatly, this kind of divine item was even rarer. Xiangyang was almost worried. Now that it had suddenly appeared in front of him, how could he not be shocked? I'm afraid it has to be several thousand years old. Yang Qinglian asked tentatively. How would this little brother know? Xiao Hua was the best at pretending to be confused. He stuffed the thing into Xiangyang's hands and smiled. Either way, this little brother has no use for it. I don't care how old it is. This kind of divine item. Xiangyang took it and sighed. Forget it, this elder brother won't say anything else. I can only accept it. That's right, don't be long-winded. This little brother's is senior brother's. Xiao Hua smiled as he looked at Xiangyang accepting it. He then asked, the second thing this little brother wants to ask is, do you still have the lightning beast's inner core? You didn't give it all to Thunder Palace, right? When Xiangyang heard this, his face immediately turned cold. He formed a seal with his hands and set up a silencing restriction. He then said, "This elder brother has used half of the lightning beast's inner core. It can't be said to be half. It's only about 30%. As for the rest, this elder brother took it back to Myriad Thunder Valley and asked Master to make a decision. Master was clever and handed over Martial Uncle Genyi's things. However, he left the lightning beast's inner core behind. However, Master, he didn't seem to have used it. He said that he would only use it at the last crucial moment. As for the rest, I'm afraid he gave it to junior brother Kui." When he finished speaking, Xiangyang's face turned somewhat ugly. "Junior brother Xiao, what do you want the lightning beast's inner core for? Could it be that you've already used it up?" Yang Qinglian hurriedly asked. "Oh, that little brother naturally didn't use it up," Xiao Hua muttered. "However, this little brother wants to use the male lightning beast's inner core now. I'll have to trouble junior brother Xiao." Xiangyang coughed and said, "This lightning beast's inner core should belong to junior brother. Even if I don't take it, it's only right. However, junior brother Kui is a disciple of Myriad Thunder Valley. That lightning beast's inner core, I heard from him that he was going to give it to Dui Chimeng as a betrothal gift. If you take it, what will he do? How much did he take?" Xiao Hua asked coldly. The remaining 70%. Master kept 30%. I'm afraid he gave 40% to him. Xiangyang hesitated and said, "Can Master's 30% be used up?" Xiao Hua asked again. Xiangyang hesitated again. He glanced at Yang Qinglian and said, "Master said that the lightning beast's inner core is no small matter. Even if I want to repair my Dao foundation, I only need 20%. As for the remaining 10%, it's all given to Li Er. I'm afraid he only needs 10%. So it's like this." Xiao Hua nodded. He muttered a few words to Xiangyang through voice transmission. After listening to Xiao Hua's explanation, Xiangyang smiled bitterly and said, "Junior brother Xiao, why do you have to do this? Master giving it to him is another matter. However, that thing is mine. I have a use for it now. I'll have to trouble senior brother this time," Xiao Hua said with a slightly cold tone. "All right." Xiangyang nodded helplessly. He got up and left. Since Xiao Hua took out the rainbow epiphyllum for Xiongzhili, he had no choice but to help Xiao Hua with this matter. "Senior sister-in-law, don't stay idle." Xiao Hua also transmitted his voice to Yang Qinglian. "Ah, you actually have ideas about Master?" Yang Qinglian was shocked when she heard this. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Master only needs 10%. Who does he want to leave the rest for? You only need to do as I say. Master will definitely give it to you." "All right." Yang Qinglian was helpless. She also got up and said, "This concubine will try." Xiangyang and Yang Qinglian were both sent away by Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua sat alone on the jade chair in the hall with his eyes closed. No one knew what he was doing. At this time, a small head popped out from the side. It secretly looked at him and then hid again. After a while, Xiongzhili walked over with a jade plate in his hand. On the plate, there was a jade pot and a few jade cups. When Xiongzhili walked to Xiao Hua's side, he carefully put the jade plate on the table. He picked up the jade pot and poured the spirit wine into the jade cups. He didn't make any sound. Then he put the cups down and sat beside Xiao Hua. He actually used his small hands to support his cheeks and looked at Xiao Hua curiously. "What are you doing?" Xiao Hua suddenly opened his eyes and asked curiously. "Foster father, are you thirsty? This is the spirit wine that mother treasures. Try it." Xiongzhili was shocked. He quickly jumped down from the chair and said respectfully, "You want me to drink wine?" Xiao Hua said with a smile. Xiongzhili said with a smile, inviting foster father to drink wine is naturally one thing. However, the boy is still curious. Father and mother often say that foster father's cultivation is so high that they can't catch up. But foster father's cultivation is only at the early stage of foundation establishment. It seems that compared to father and mother, you are far worse. Even Martial uncle qui can't catch up. Foster father, are you really that powerful? Hee hee. Xiao Hua smiled. He reached out and picked up the small wine cup. He took a sip and said, "How do you know that my cultivation is only at the early stage of foundation establishment?" "Naturally, it's a sensing technique." Xiong Zhili asked curiously, "If the boy has spiritual pressure, he can also use it to test it." Hee hee, since there's a technique to sense other people's cultivation, there's naturally a technique to prevent others from sensing your own cultivation, Xiao Hua said with a smile. Moreover, that spiritual pressure may not be reliable. Hey, there's such a technique. Xiong Zhili's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said, "Then wouldn't the boy be able to make others think that the boy is only at the second stage of qi refining? If they use ordinary techniques to attack the boy can defeat them with his true cultivation at the 7th stage of qi refining?" Xiao Hua was speechless. "Isn't this child too smart?" "That's right, foster father. Father said that in the future, foster father will teach me a great divine ability." Is this that great divine ability? Senior, can you teach the boy now? Xiong Zhili's face was filled with longing. Looking at Xiong Zhili's small face, Xiao Hua suddenly thought of Daoist Jing Ayu's sinister face. Thus, Xiao Hua sighed and said, "What kind of great technique is that?" Xiao Hua laughed hoarsely. He patted his forehead and spat out a ray of green-red light from his mouth. That ray of green-red light circled the entire cave. Even someone like Xiong Zhili, who was at the 7th stage of qi refining, couldn't see any clues. When the ray of green-red light landed in Xiao Hua's hand, it was the execution dream that had successfully conceived the sword. That secret technique can't even compare to the flying sword technique. It simply can't be considered a great technique. Xiao Hua said with a smile, "Do you also want to learn the flying sword technique?" Yes. Xiong Zhili's eyes were filled with longing. His small head nodded like a chick pecking at rice. If you want to learn it, you have to establish a solid foundation for your qi refining. First, you have to master the basic mental cultivation method. Moreover, the flying sword technique isn't a great technique. If you want to learn it, foster father can naturally teach it to you. Also, regarding the matter of the great divine ability, you must not tell anyone about it. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian.com to vote for it. -8. Chapter 2184. Yes, the boy understands. Xiong Zhili said seriously, "This is Godfather's secret. The boy will swear a heart oath to never tell anyone else. Godfather, you can teach me now, right?" Xiao Hua snorted, his face cold. "Do you think a heart oath can be made so casually? I'm telling you this because I'm not afraid of you telling others. Moreover, this is just a small trick. Even if it's called a secret technique, it can't compare to real cultivation. Why don't you think about how to cultivate? When your cultivation is high enough, I'll teach you a great divine ability. Why are you thinking about these small tricks?" Xiong Zhili saw that Xiao Hua was angry and hurriedly bowed. "Godfather, please calm down. The boy knows he was wrong. The boy won't dare to think about anything else in the future. Damn. Why am I the same as master?" Xiao Hua complained in his heart, but he still said with a cold face, "Also, it's good to be a little smart, but you can't rely on it. If you plot against your family, they won't mind. But if it's someone else, there might be some bad karma. Being an upright person and cultivating clearly is the way to reach the heavens." "Yes, the boy understands," Xiong Zhili hurriedly said. Xiao Hua nodded, his expression gentle. After thinking for a while, he said, "However, if you really meet an enemy, you don't have to be too rigid. What sinister? What can you win? Who cares? What can you win? Who cares? It's best if you can win and live." "Hehe, the boy understands." Xiong Zhili smiled. The beginning was the same as what father said, but in the end, he's better than father. That's enough. Leah, go and rest," Xiao Hua said. "Your cultivation is still shallow, and you're still too young. Godfather can't think of any good secret techniques to teach you for the time being. When you're older and Godfather's cultivation has some progress, it won't be too late to teach you then. Yes, the boy understands. Xiongzhili smiled and said, what I've learned now is already tiring enough for me. Let's wait until I reach the foundation establishment stage. At that time, foster father must guide me in my cultivation. All right. Xiao Hua readily agreed. He knew quite a number of magic arts, many of which were secret arts. But thinking about it, in the future, Lei Meng Zhenren would personally guide Xiongzhili in his cultivation. These things might even affect Xiongzhili's cultivation. Therefore, Xiao Hua really didn't know what to give him. Since Zhuo Xiongzhili was still young, he had plenty of time to think about it. After Xiongzhili carefully withdrew, Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out Shueshue's 2 jade slips. One was pink, and the other was just given to him by Xiongyang. The restriction on the pink jade slip was still there. It was exactly as Shueshue had said. As long as she didn't die, the jade slip couldn't be opened. What the hell is in there? Xiao Hua was extremely bewildered. If it was about foundation building, Shueshue should have removed the restriction on the pink jade slip at that time and let him examine it. However, Shueshue didn't seem to have thought about this jade slip at all. However, when they first arrived at Kuehe Sea, Shueshue took the jade slip from him. She seemed to have written something and returned it to him. Forget it. There will always be a time when the truth comes to light. Let's wait. Maybe the day of dual cultivation will also be the day when the mystery of this pink jade slip will be revealed. Xiao Hua thought of the pink jade slip and his heart swayed. With a smile on his face, he carefully put the pink jade slip into his space. When Xiao Hua immersed his divine sense into the other jade slip, a strange expression unconsciously appeared on his face. Yes, the jade slip clearly stated that after Xiao Hua flew away, Shueshue actually went in the direction of Reverend Jing Ayu until she saw Reverend Jing Ayu's face with her own eyes. Then, Shueshue returned to Sunset Island. Although Kua Heng was somewhat surprised, he still received Shueshue as a distinguished guest. However, Shueshue was burning with anxiety and didn't stop at all. Accompanied by Kua Riming and Kua Qiao she left Kuehe Sea. According to Xiao Hua's plan, Zhongling Mountain Village should send more people to escort Shueshue. However, Shueshue didn't go to Zhongling Mountain Village at all. Instead, she found a teleportation formation nearby and arrived at Inkcloud Black Forest. After passing through Inkcloud Black Forest, she arrived at Haoming City. Then, Kua Qiao and Kua Riming returned to Kuehe Sea. Yu Chen of Haoming City sent city guards to escort Shueshue all the way back to Imperial Thunder Sect. When Shueshue arrived at Imperial Thunder Sect, she immediately went to Myriad Thunder Valley and told Xiao Hua about the danger he was in. She also described the appearance of the nascent soul cultivator clearly. Xiao Hua naturally heard about the things that happened after that from Xiongyang and the others. However, Xiao Hua was slightly puzzled by the latter part of the story. Husband, I know that you will definitely be fine. However, I can't help but feel anxious and worried. I know that doing these things won't help your return at all, but I still have to do it. It seems that if I don't do these things, my heart won't be at ease. Only when I can do some small things for you, even if it's something that is completely useless, can I feel that I have some value by your side. Husband, when you saw the jade slip, I was already in seclusion. Master thinks very highly of me. Naturally, I have already given all the credit for my foundation building to you. Presumably, when you and I dual cultivate in the future, Master will consider it carefully. Husband. I'm afraid you will be disappointed again, right? I can't serve you anymore. But don't worry, I will come out of seclusion very soon. When you and I meet again, it will be the time when you and I combine. I will definitely let you know that what Fairy Hongxia can do, I can also do. I can do it, even better than her. This silly child. Xiao Hua saw that Shueshue actually took the risk to check Daoist Jing Yu's appearance, and his heart ached. If Daoist Jing Yu wasn't in a hurry to kill him, she might really have captured Shueshue. Even thinking about how Daoist Jing Yu didn't hesitate to kill many low-level cultivators along the way to cover her tracks, Xiao Hua actually felt some lingering fear. However, how does Xue Xue know that I will definitely be fine? Xiao Hua muttered to himself again. It seemed that Xue Xue had also vaguely said this when they were separated from each other in Feng He Hai. Could it be that she also has the ability to predict the future? Not to mention Xiao Hua's contemplation, Xiong Yang, who had received Xiao Hua's request, flew to Kui Hongshan's immortal cave. After his figure landed, he was rather hesitant. At this moment, Kui Hongshan, who was inside the immortal cave, sensed movement and swept out his divine sense. Seeing that it was Xiong Yang, he immediately flew out of the immortal cave and bowed. Eldest senior brother, I don't know why you are looking for me. This. Xiong Yang was still embarrassed to speak. Hehe, eldest senior brother, please come inside the immortal cave and talk. Kui Hongshan smiled and invited Xiong Yang into the immortal cave. -8. Chapter 2185. After pouring the spiritual tea for Xiong Yang said with a smile, Junior brother Kui, your cave is still short of people. After you marry Chimeng, you should accept a disciple. Hehe, senior brother is right. Kui Hongshan said with a smile, however, I'm used to being frugal and don't like to take any disciple. If I find a good for nothing, it won't be enough for me to worry about. And if I want to accept a disciple, I'm afraid it has to be at the late stage of foundation establishment, right? Then after dual cultivation, you can have a child and train him yourself. Xiong Yang knew he was wrong and quickly corrected himself. Alas, how can it be that easy? Kui Hongshan shook his head and said, first, not all children are as smart as Li Er. Who knows what will happen if we have another child in the myriad Thunder Valley? Second, this matter still depends on Chimeng. Senior brother, didn't you see Master? Shatilda Master's matter is not something we can discuss. Xiong Yang hurriedly stopped him. Hehe, let's not talk about this. Kui Hongshan said with a smile, I don't know why senior brother is looking for me. Actually, I have something to ask of you, junior brother. Xiong Yang said as he stood up and bowed respectfully. Don't. Kui Hongshan was shocked and hurriedly raised his hand. Senior brother, what are you doing? If you have something to ask, just say it. As long as I can do it, I will definitely do it. Well, since it's like this, I won't be polite. Xiong Yang sat down and set up a mute restriction. He hesitated for a moment and said, Junior brother Kui, do you still have the Thunder Beast's inner core? Yes. Kui Hongshan said curiously, I still don't dare to use it. However, Kui Hongshan's face changed immediately. He seemed to think of something and said coldly, what? Senior brother, are you here to ask for it on behalf of Xiao Hua? Xiong Yang was very embarrassed and sighed. Junior brother Kui must know that this Thunder Beast's inner core was obtained by Xiao Hua. Senior brother, no need to say it. Kui Hongshan waved his hand and said, little brother has already heard these words from eldest senior apprentice brother. Little brother also understands in his heart that these words were fabricated by eldest senior apprentice brother because he wanted to change Xiao Hua's impression in front of master. When this guy came back and heard that his little brother had taken the lightning beast's inner core, he was not convinced. Or perhaps, he needed the thunder beast's inner core right now, which was why he encouraged eldest senior brother to come here and ask for it. Eldest senior brother, he saw that you were kind, so he came to deceive you. Why did you let him use you like a flying sword? Besides, this inner core was given to me by master. If he wants it, he can ask master for it. As long as master says so, I will definitely give it to him. Xiong Yang's face was slightly red. He coughed twice and said, actually, that's what I thought too. However, there's already a gap between you and him, and he just built his foundation. If he directly asks master for it, do you think master will give it to him? Why would I give it to him? With his aptitude and the fact that he just entered foundation establishment, he dares to covet the thunder beast's inner core? Kui Hongshan said disdainfully. So? Xiong Yang said embarrassedly, he had no choice but to ask me for help. Eldest senior brother. You're too easy to talk to. Kui Hongshan looked at Xiong Yang snappily. You're such a nice guy. If he wants it, Then let him beg me himself. Junior brother Kui. Xiangyang knew that Xiao Hua would never come to beg Kui Hongshan. He smiled apologetically and said, "Do you think he will come? He wants to benefit himself, but he doesn't want to beg others. How can there be such a good thing in this world?" Kui Hongshan was so angry that he laughed. "Does he think I'm so easy to bully? This thunder beast's inner core is related to my golden core's hope." He, Xiangyang chuckled again, and said, "Xiao Hua also knows that this is related to your cultivation, so he is embarrassed to speak. Isn't it because Li wants to be his adoptive father? Just now, he brought it up in elder brother's immortal's cave. Since he has spoken, how can elder brother not give him face? However, he still said that he will definitely return junior brother Kui's favor, and he will definitely make junior brother Kui satisfied. Tilde him?" Kui Hongshan sneered. "I don't know where he got it from last time." At this point, he suddenly realized that he had made a vow and immediately shut his mouth. Little brother doesn't believe that he has anything good for little brother. I'm afraid that once this thunder beast's inner core is sold, it will be like throwing a meat bun at a dog. Seeing that Kui Hongshan didn't relent, Xiangyang said again, "However, junior brother Xiao doesn't intend to take it all. He said clearly that junior brother Kui only needs to leave 10% of the entire inner core. He still has the nerve. I have 40% of this thunder beast's inner core, and he actually dares to ask for 30%. Kui Hongshan was furious. Doesn't he know? I'm going to use this thunder beast's inner core as a betrothal gift. If there's no such thing, what does my 10,000 Thunder Valley have that the converted Thunder Palace would like? Cough cough, junior brother Kui, isn't there still 3 years? No one can guarantee that there won't be any good things in these 3 years. Xiangyang said step by step, and Kui Hongshan was somewhat moved. If he directly asked for 40%, Kui Hongshan would never give it to him. Now that he left him 10%, it could be considered a trick. Eldest senior brother this is related to junior brother's future happiness. Kui Hongshan was somewhat helpless. Junior brother knows that eldest senior brother and Xiao Hua have deep feelings for each other, but has eldest senior brother thought about junior brother? Xiangyang still didn't get angry and explained, senior brother also thought about it. These days, I've been preparing, but there are still 3 years, so there's no need to be too anxious. On the other hand, junior brother Xiao. Okay, eldest senior brother, Xiao Hua's matter is a matter, but junior brother's matter isn't a matter. Kui Hongshan stood up and said, junior brother still has a technique to comprehend, so I won't keep eldest senior brother any longer. Junior brother Kui. Xiangyang was anxious, and said with a bow, you and Xiao Hua already have a grudge. This is a good opportunity for you two to eliminate the grudge. Senior brother really doesn't want to see 2 disciples of my 10,000 Thunder Valley. If it doesn't work, senior brother will kneel in front of you. Ayo, eldest senior brother. Kui Hongshan didn't dare to let Xiangyang kneel. He immediately pulled him aside. Eldest senior brother should go back first, let junior brother think about it again. Sigh, okay. Xiangyang sighed, looking very old. He waved his hand and said, I hope junior brother Kui can think about it carefully and understand senior brother a little. After saying that, he removed the mute restriction and walked away. Seeing Xiangyang return, Xiao Hua opened his eyes and asked indifferently, how was it? Eldest senior brother, that guy didn't want to take out the Thunder Beast's inner core, right? Of course not. Xiangyang said with a smile. Junior brother Kui knew that junior brother Xiao wanted to use it, so he was very happy. However, he was a little hesitant because this inner core was his betrothal gift, so he wanted to think about it again. Eldest senior brother, don't say any more. How could junior brother not know what kind of character that guy is? Xiao Hua sneered, since he didn't want to give it, then don't blame junior brother. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chijian.com to vote for it. -8. Chapter 2186. When Xiangyang heard this, he jumped in fright and hurriedly stopped Xiao Hua. Junior brother Xiao, what are you doing? No matter what, he's still your fellow disciple. Don't do anything to hurt him. Xiongyang knew that Xiao Hua dealing with Kui Hongshan was as easy as lifting a finger. Even Xiongyang doubted whether his master could be Xiao Hua's opponent. How could I? Xiao Hua patted Xiongyang's shoulder and smiled. How could I kill the innocent? At this moment, Yang Qinglian quickly walked in with a smile on her face. Haha, how was it, eldest senior sister-in-law? Did master's wife succeed? Xiao Hua smiled. He was about to walk out when he stopped. Yang Qinglian's face was full of smiles and even a little red. She said, "Junior brother's words are really useful. Master originally didn't want to give it to you, but master's wife just said a few words and master immediately obediently gave it to me." Xiongyang was confused and asked, "What's going on?" "Hihi, isn't it because junior brother wants master's thunder beast inner core?" Yang Qinglian tossed her hand and took out a jade box with a talisman on it. She handed it to Xiao Hua. "This is 20% of the thunder beast inner core. Junior brother, keep it." "Good boy, junior brother, what are you doing?" Xiongyang was even more stunned. "You already got 20% from master, why do you still want 30%? Junior brother naturally has a use for it." Xiao Hua took the jade box and put it into his space without even looking. "Oh, right, what did master's wife say?" "Master just obediently gave it to you." Xiongyang wanted to stop Xiao Hua and deliberately asked. "Hehe, it's very simple." Xiao Hua smiled. Master's wife only needed to say, Xiongyang used the Thunder Beast inner core to get Xiongzhili's gift. You only need 10% of the Thunder Beast inner core to step into the Golden Core stage. Then what are you keeping the other 20% for? Ah, can it be like that? Xiongyang was stunned and then immediately understood. So, Master had no choice but to give the other 20% to Master's wife for safekeeping. So, you got it. Hehe, that's right. Xiao Hua smiled and was about to leave again. How could Xiongyang let him harm Kui Hongshan? He hurriedly said, "Junior brother Xiao, let's wait, wait." Yang Qinglian also knew what was going on and was very anxious. At this moment, Xiongzhili ran out and shouted, "Father, mother, what happened?" Xiongyang was curious. He was about to scold Xiongzhili when he noticed the jade box in Xiongzhili's hand. Just now, the boy was playing outside the cave when a message talisman suddenly flew in. I don't know who sent it, so the boy followed the instructions on the message talisman and walked into the thicket in the Myriad Thunder Valley. He found a jade box inside. Boy doesn't have enough magic power to open this talisman. Xiongzhili's little face was filled with excitement as he held up the jade box. Oh! Xiongyang was taken aback. He took the jade box, but when he saw the familiar talisman on the box, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. He passed the box to Xiao Hua. "This is for you." Oh! Xiao Hua was really surprised. "Who threw it?" "Father, how did you know it was foster father?" Xiongzhili was very curious and asked, "When did foster father throw this jade box outside?" Xiao Hua was slightly embarrassed. He received the jade box and said, "Foster father accidentally threw it." "Thank you." "Okay, you're welcome, foster father." Xiongzhili skipped out of the cave again. Xiongyang and Yang Qinglian looked at each other. Yang Qinglian said in a low voice, "Little junior brother, you see, he doesn't seem to be as bad as you think, right?" "Hehe, this was originally little brother's." Xiao Hua curled his lips. He clapped his hands and took out 3 more jade boxes. He passed them to Xiongyang and Yang Qinglian respectively and said, "Little brother doesn't owe anyone anything. One of these is senior sister's, one is master's wife's, and the last one can be the betrothal gift." Xiongyang slapped his forehead and came to a realization. He sighed and said, "Ari, little junior brother, so you didn't use this lightning core. Since that's the case, why didn't you take it out earlier? This female lightning beast's inner core is naturally suitable for female cultivators to consume. Little brother just said that it was naturally useless. I just wanted to see what other people thought." Xiao Hua said without hesitation, if he didn't take it out, he wouldn't even get 10%. "Why?" Xiongyang shook his head. He took the jade box and turned around to leave. What could Yang Qinglian say? She also shook her head slightly. She felt helpless for Xiao Hua and Kui Hongshan's quarrel. However, Kui Hongshan took a step back. Xiao Hua, who seemed weak but was actually incomparably strong, finally understood a little. What? Xiao Hua said coldly, isn't it because you can't refuse? That's why you threw it away. Would it kill you to generously give it to me? Is a disciple of a cultivation family so arrogant? Don't think that just because you took the lightning beast's inner core, I will think highly of you. This belongs to this young master to begin with. Immediately, Xiao Hua sat cross-legged on the jade chair in the cave and quietly adjusted his breathing. However, Xiao Hua's simple breathing adjustment couldn't affect the spirit energy that was scattered in his meridians and body. He also couldn't refine the earth crystal yarrow milk in his meridians. After thinking for a moment, he realized that unless his dragon transformation art and heavenly man body enhancement technique made further progress, there would be no chance. Otherwise, his body and meridians would really collapse. It seems. I have to go into seclusion for a while. Xiao Hua thought for a long time and made a decision. Before going into seclusion, I have to open a cave first. But, do I really have to leave my life tablet in Zhenlei Palace? Xiao Hua knew that there was something wrong with his blood. He really didn't want to leave anything behind in Zhenlei Palace that could be used against him. However, the next day, when Xiongyang brought Xiao Hua to Zhenlei Palace, Xiao Hua found out from Xiongyang that only Foundation Establishment disciples who finished making their life tablet and left it in Zhenlei Palace's Jade Archive Hall could get a command tablet from the master in charge of the Jade Archive Hall. Only Foundation Establishment disciples could use the command tablet to get a spirit-seeking mouse and open a cave in the territory of the Imperial Thunder Sect. Forget it. Xiao Hua shook his head helplessly when he thought about how the Imperial Thunder Sect had so many rules. Naturally, they were afraid that some disciples wouldn't follow the rules. Xiao Hua came to Jade Archive Hall when he first entered the Imperial Thunder Sect. At that time, it was also led by Xiongyang, but this time, it was different from the previous time. The people who were laughing at Xiongyang's 100 years of foundation building were no longer laughing. Instead, they were replaced with respect. Some of the Foundation Establishment middle stage martial brothers even pulled Xiongyang to ask him how to teach their children. Looking at the eager faces of these martial brothers, Xiao Hua couldn't help but laugh. Not only was he moved by the change in their attitudes, but he was also moved by their sacrifice for their children. Of course, many disciples also recognized Xiao Hua. They also knew that although Xiao Hua didn't build his foundation in 100 years, it took him a long time to build his foundation. Although there was some contempt on their faces, their words were much better than the first time. There were also more words of encouragement. There were even a few martial brothers who took out early-stage Foundation Establishment medicinal pills and gave them to Xiao Hua. Xiongyang stole a glance at Xiao Hua. He was still afraid that Xiao Hua would get angry, but Xiao Hua was calm. He reached out his hand to accept them and thanked them. There was nothing unnatural about it, which made Xiongyang very confused. When there was no one around, Xiongyang asked, "Little martial brother, these medicinal pills, do you still need them? There's no reason for you to give them a favor." Xiao Hua patted his storage bag and curled his lips. What's there to give them a favor? Aren't they a little too ungrateful? If you don't take the medicinal pills that they sent to you, the heavens will be angry. In the future, no one will give you any. Besides, even if I don't use them, there's still Li, right? Leave them for him. Ha ha ha. Xiongyang laughed and patted his stingy little martial brother. Not long after, Xiao Hua and the others arrived at Jade Archive Hall. Sure enough, there were 2 or 3 12th layer aura refining disciples standing in front of Jade Archive Hall. They were on duty. Xiao Hua didn't use his divine sense, but he could clearly see that the one who was berating the other two was Zhen Liang, whom he taught with his fists in the past. Hearing footsteps, Zhen Liang turned his head while cursing. "I'll be honest with you. It's your fortune that senior martial brother called you to be on duty." Zhen Liang immediately shut up because he saw Xiao Hua. He had been on duty in Jade Archive Hall for such a long time, and the only one who came out to beat him was Xiao Hua. How could he forget? At this time, he saw that Xiong Yang, who had become very famous in recent years, had unexpectedly brought Xiao Hua, who was at Foundation establishment, over. Naturally, his face was very unsightly. Junior greets Martial Uncle Xiong Yang. Junior greets Xiao. Martial Uncle Xiao. When Zhen Liang called Xiong Yang, it was smooth, but when he called Xiao Hua, it was really hard for him to say it out loud. Unfortunately, this was the rule of cultivation sects. Although you have advanced 100 li, but the younger generation is catching up with you, you have no choice but to lower your head and call them respectfully. Isn't this also a kind of spur? Xiao Hua had always been a person who held grudges and was very narrow-minded. Although his face was all smiles, his mouth had already said, "Oh, so it's Martial Nephew General previously. I had to trouble Martial Nephew Gen when I was registering for the Imperial Thunder Sect. Now that I've reached Foundation establishment, my natal spirit tablet is still Martial Nephew General. I've really troubled you. I'm really sorry. Haha, it's no matter, no matter." Zhen Liang's face was very awkward, and even his face was red and hot. "Oh, that's right. I remember that there's also someone called Zhen Ming. Where did he go?" Xiao Hua looked around, pretending to be looking for him. "Why don't I see him?" Martial Uncle Xiao, Martial Uncle Zhen Ming has also reached Foundation establishment. He has already been transferred to another place. A trace of resentment appeared on Zhen Liang's face, as if there was some hidden story. Xiao Hua originally wanted to say something, but Xiong Yang stopped him and said with a smile, "Martial Nephew Zhen, my junior martial brother has also reached Foundation establishment. I'll have to trouble Martial Nephew Zhen to invite senior martial brother Zhen over." Seeing Xiong Yang's bearing, Xiao Hua suddenly felt that he was very small. The small in his heart was forced out and revealed without a doubt. Of course, although Zhen Liang hadn't reached Foundation establishment and although he did make some small moves against him that day, he had still beaten him up that day. It could be said that they were even. But now, he was using Zhen Liang's shortcomings to ridicule him. It seemed, it was the same as when he hadn't reached Foundation establishment yet. He didn't seem to be much more noble than others. -8. Chapter 2187. Immediately, Xiao Hua's forehead was covered in sweat. It was a kind of shame that came from the bottom of his heart. "Thank you, Martial Nephew Zhen Liang." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said with a smile. Zhen Liang was stunned and almost took half a step back. He was afraid that Xiao Hua would punch him again. However, Xiao Hua smiled and looked at Zhen Liang with a pleasant expression. He had the demeanor of a martial uncle. Xiong Yang was also slightly stunned. Soon after, he smiled and knew that Xiao Hua had understood that he was wrong. "Okay, Martial Uncle Xiao and Martial Uncle Xiong, please wait for a moment." Zhen Liang also understood and cupped his hands. At this time, he was very willing to call Xiao Hua Martial Uncle Xiao. Not long after, Deacon Zhen came. When he saw Xiao Hua, a trace of understanding appeared on his face. He pointed at Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "Xiao Hua, you finally reached the Foundation establishment stage? It really wasn't easy. Your master is going to be happy now." "Hehe, Martial Uncle Zhen is joking," Xiao Hua said respectfully. "Even if I reach the gold core stage, my master won't be too happy. Haha, this is the trouble of being a master." Zhen said with a smile, "Your disciple will always be a child who can't grow up. Even if you are a nascent soul stage cultivator, you still want to see if you can split your spirit earlier." "Yes." Xiao Hua nodded. Then, Zhen opened the door of the Jade Archive Hall and said with a smile, "I still have some things to do with the Palace Master, so I won't stay here to accompany you." Then, he said to Zhen Liang, accompany the two martial uncles and watch them refine their life spirit tablets. Then, give them the tablets." After saying that, he threw a tablet to Zhen Liang. Then, he cupped his hands at Xiao Hua and Xiong Yang and walked away. "Hehe, martial uncles, please." Zhen Liang didn't find it strange. He smiled and raised his hand, indicating for Xiao Hua and Xiong Yang to enter. When Xiao Hua arrived at the place where he placed the jade tablet, he sensed it. Even the yellow restriction couldn't block it. After Zhen Liang removed the yellow restriction, he clapped his hands and took out a jade slip, handing it over to Xiao Hua. "Martial Uncle Xiao, this is the method to make a life spirit tablet, please take a look." As for Xiong Yang, he pointed at a cyan jade slip next to Xiao Hua and said with a smile, "That's junior brother Kui's life tablet. Now, all of the adult disciples of my myriad Thunder Valley have reached the foundation establishment stage." His tone was somewhat weathered. Haha. Xiao Hua didn't say much. He immersed his spirit into the jade slip and understood. However, after a while, Xiao Hua's face revealed a difficult expression. He smiled apologetically and said, "Junior nephew Zhen, this refining method is a little difficult. I'm afraid my magic power is not enough. I wonder." "He," Zhen Liang said understandingly, "disciple understands. I'm sure Martial Uncle Xiong accompanied me here for this reason. However, only I can refine this natal spirit tablet. Martial Uncle can't be lazy, you know?" As he spoke, Zhen Liang looked at another part of the Jade Archive Hall and shook his head, saying, "The restriction over at Xuanlei Palace is a little loose. It's all because these newcomers don't know the rules. Martial Uncles, please refine it. Disciple will go over there and take a look." Seeing Zhen Liang tactfully leave, Xiao Hua smiled. Really, he didn't expect that just one sentence from him would cause Zhen Liang to change so much. Alas, what a pity. If this guy had understood earlier and had such a temperament, perhaps even reaching the foundation establishment stage wouldn't be a big deal. As Xiao Hua thought about it, he slightly formed a seal in his hand, and the surrounding spirit energy surged. As Xiao Hua's seal set off a gust of wind, there was a soft catcher sound, and a layer of golden brilliance appeared on the jade token. Xiao Hua's life spirit tablet was refined by him in the blink of an eye. Hiss. Seeing this, Xiong Yang sucked in a breath of cold air, sweat. It seems that every time Xiao Hua reveals some of his strength, the onlookers are all like this. It wasn't only because of the golden light on the jade slip, but also because Xiao Hua had already revealed the golden light the first time. What shocked him was Xiao Hua's refining technique. It was very clear that Xiong Yang himself had also come here in the past because of helplessness. Even Kui Hongshan had come here with Xiong Yang. Xiong Yang knew how difficult it was to refine this natal spirit tablet. He himself, under helplessness's guidance, spent a lot of effort, and barely succeeded in refining it. Kui Hongshan wasn't that strong. Xiong Yang had guided him for half a day, but he also barely succeeded. This was also the reason why Zhen didn't wait here. It was also the reason why Zhen Liang left. It was very embarrassing for a disciple who had just reached the foundation establishment stage. But what about Xiao Hua? It was as easy as lifting a finger, as easy as lifting a finger. Previously, Xiong Yang really thought that what Xiao Hua said was true, but he didn't expect him to succeed with just a lift of his hand. Xiong Yang glanced at Zhen Liang and hurriedly said, "Junior brother, refining this natal spirit tablet is very difficult. Back then, it took me half a day to refine it. My junior brother Kui from the 10,000 Thunder Valley also took half a day. Don't worry, slowly refine it." Ah! Xiao Hua was stunned. He bitterly smiled and thought, "Eldest senior brother, you should have said so earlier." That's right, for Xiao Hua, who was proficient in refining the world, this was really too easy. He only wanted to hide the golden light and didn't care about anything else. Fortunately, the golden light on the natal spirit tablet had already gradually disappeared, and it actually turned into a plain jade slip. It was very simple, very low-key, and very secretive, just like Xiao Hua. Thus, Xiao Hua put on an act for almost half a day, but Zhen Liang really didn't come over. Xiao Hua called out, "Martial nephew Zhen, I've finally finished. Please come over and take a look." Haha, Martial Uncle Xiao is really amazing. Zhen Liang heard him and came over with a smile. Usually, a disciple who just entered the foundation establishment realm would definitely not be able to refine it in half a day. Martial Uncle Xiao actually succeeded in less than half a day. All these years of suffering weren't in vain. Then, Zhen Liang took the natal spirit tablet and took out a fist-sized jade ball. He formed a seal and hit it. The jade ball gradually turned into a fog. Then, Zhen Liang threw Xiao Hua's natal spirit tablet into it. A golden light flashed inside, illuminating the entire fog. Oh! Xiao Hua was a little surprised. He didn't think that the jade ball would still reveal a strange golden light. Of course, Zhen Liang's face also showed a little surprise. Xiao Hua secretly said in his heart, "Not good. It's a little strange." Sure enough, Zhen Liang frowned and said, "There's something wrong with Martial Uncle Xiao's natal spirit tablet. There should be a vague human figure in this fog." Xiao Hua rolled his eyes and asked, "Is it like this for all successful natal spirit tablets? Must it have a human figure? Or is there something else?" "That's not necessarily true." Zhen Liang raised his eyebrows and said with a smile, "Natal spirit tablets are made by using the traces of a cultivator's primordial spirit in their blood. And every cultivator's primordial spirit is different. Ordinary cultivators are all in human form, but there are also some strange ones. Haha, this disciple has also heard of this before. However, this is the first time that Martial Uncle Xiao can't see it at all. -8. Chapter 2188. Then, is this life spirit tablet considered a success? Xiong Yang was more concerned about this. Of course. Zhen Liang smiled apologetically. If it wasn't, there wouldn't be any light at all. It wouldn't even be able to be placed into this jade ball. Oh, that's good. Xiong Yang heaved a sigh of relief. Zhen Liang took out Xiao Hua's life spirit tablet and carefully placed it inside the restriction. After activating the restriction, he smiled and said, "Martial Uncle Xiao's life spirit tablet has been completed. This is Martial Uncle Xiao's token. You can use this token to go to the spiritual beast hall of the Thunder Palace to receive a spirit-seeking mouse and establish a residence within the Thunder Palace. Disciple congratulates Martial Uncle Xiao. Haha, congratulations to you too." Xiao Hua clapped his hands and took out a few pills for Zhen Liang. "As long as Martial Nephew Zhen puts in the effort, you can also build your foundation. You don't have to be so polite." Zhen Liang stretched out his hand and pushed it over. However, when he saw the pills in Xiao Hua's hand, he was stunned and said in shock, "Sway. Sway ye pill?" The hand that was pushing out froze there. "Haha, I just happened to come across this item when I was out training." Xiao Hua pushed it slightly and placed the pills in his hand. He explained, "Since I have already built my foundation, I don't need this item anymore. Martial Nephew Zhen, take it. If someone uses it, it's called a pill. If no one uses it, it's nothing." "Yes." Zhen Liang thought for a moment and accepted it with a smile. He said, "Disciple thanks Martial Uncle Xiao for your kindness. If it was any other pill, Disciple wouldn't dare to accept it." Xiao Hua nodded. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly heard a catcher sound from the distance of the Jade Archive Hall. Shortly after, he took out a light purple restriction that emitted a strong brilliance, illuminating the entire Jade Archive Hall. "Oh no, I don't know which senior from the Thunder Palace was killed." Zhen Liang was shocked. He didn't dare to say anything more to Xiao Hua and hurriedly flew over. At this moment, two disciples guarding outside the Jade Archive Hall also rushed in. When Zhen Liang opened the restriction, he saw a pink spirit tablet with a long crack on it. Moreover, the position of the token wasn't low. "Quick, inform Martial Uncle Zhen Zhen." Zhen Liang ordered the disciples who had rushed over. "A Golden Core Realm Master from Converging Thunder Palace has died." Yes. That disciple didn't dare to be negligent and left after receiving the order. On the other hand, Zhen Liang said apologetically, "Martial Uncle Xiao, this disciple originally wanted to ask Martial Uncle for some advice on foundation establishment. You see, there's another urgent matter in the sect. Please forgive me. Haha, this Xiao's matter is already done. If there is a chance in the future, Martial Nephew Zhen can come to my 10,000 Thunder Valley." Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said, "I will take my leave now." Then, Zhen Liang respectfully sent the two of them out. The situation was completely different from the first time they had come. However, when Xiao Hua and Xiong Yang walked far away, Zhen Liang couldn't help but look at the Thunder Palace's restrictions. His eyes were somewhat strange. Not to mention Zhen Liang suppressing the astonishment in his heart, and not to mention the chaos in the Jade Archive Hall due to the Jindan cultivator's life tablet breaking, Xiao Hua and Xiong Yang returned to the myriad Thunder Valley from the deafening Thunder Palace. Looking at the lazy, big, fat spirit-seeking mouse with dull eyes lying on his hand, Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Eldest senior brother, is this a spirit-seeking mouse? Xiao Hua held back for a long time and finally couldn't help but complain, isn't this just a spirit-seeking mouse? Fart. Xiong Yang also laughed and pointed at Xiao Hua, saying, little junior brother, have you seen a spirit-seeking mouse before? If you haven't, don't show any fear. This spirit-seeking mouse is born with a big body. It doesn't have any abilities, so it doesn't need to fight or defend against enemies. It only needs to find places with sufficient spirit chi and some spirit veins. What do you want it to look like? But this appearance is really throwing the spirit-seeking mouse's mouse. Xiao Hua didn't say whether he had seen a spirit-seeking mouse before and only covered his mouth as he laughed. This is already not bad. My 10,000 Thunder Valley's silent thunder is quite powerful. Ordinary spirit-seeking mice are useless. This spirit-seeking mouse was used by junior brother Kui last time. Xiong Yang also looked at the fat spirit-seeking mouse and laughed. But after saying that, Xiong Yang's face was a little embarrassed. Sure enough, Xiao Hua's face was not too happy as he muttered, so it's something that someone else left behind. How? How can you say that? Xiong Yang blinked his eyes and was somewhat in disbelief. Then, he looked left and right and said, the rest of the matter is simple. Junior brother Xiao knows that once you release the spirit-seeking mouse, it will naturally find a place with abundant spirit chi. You only need to record the location on the jade slip and place it into the spirit-seeking mouse's mouth. It will then return to the deafening Thunder Palace on its own. After a few days, a disciple will bring a cave-opening puppet over to help you open the cave. As for the size of the cave, you can decide for yourself. I have some matters to attend to, so I'll take my leave first. Obviously, Xiong Yang was afraid that he would say something wrong and make Xiao Hua unhappy, so he waved his hand and flew off into the distance. What spirit-seeking mouse? It's simply a spirit-seeking cat. Xiao Hua waited until Xiong Yang had flown far away before he waved his hand and little Silver flew out of the space. The spirit-seeking mouse in Xiao Hua's heart suddenly opened its eyes, and the fur on its body stood on end. Its two small eyes widened as it stared straight at little Silver, who was several times smaller than it. Little Silver flew in the air and looked left and right in bewilderment, as if it was very unhappy that Xiao Hua had taken it out. Hearing the spirit-seeking mouse's tch, it turned its head slightly and didn't care. It only stretched out its two small front paws and put them next to its mouth with a pu sound, which sounded like a snort. The spirit-seeking mouse immediately jumped down from Xiao Hua's hand and obediently lay down in the air. Its whole body was trembling, and its puffed-up fur immediately fell down smoothly. With a whoosh, little Silver flew to Xiao Hua's hand, which was precisely where the spirit-seeking mouse had been in a daze just now. Its small tail curled around Xiao Hua's little finger with great familiarity before it obediently crouched down. Don't lie down. Xiao Hua didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Hurry up and find me where the spiritual energy is. Unfortunately, little Silver didn't pay attention to him. It didn't understand what Xiao Hua was saying at all. Xiao Hua looked at the space again. Well, little Yellow was sleeping again, so it probably couldn't hear what he was saying. Go. Xiao Hua waved his big sleeve and threw the spirit-seeking mouse forward, saying, go find a cave for this young master. It was a pity that the spirit-seeking mouse didn't listen to him at all this time. It still lay obediently in the air, not daring to move at all. Damn it. Xiao Hua smiled. He naturally knew what was going on. He had no choice but to put little Silver into the space and throw the spirit-seeking mouse out again. When the spirit-seeking mouse suddenly saw little Silver disappear, it was still surprised. It actually flew in the air for a moment before shaking its fur and looking high and mighty again. Fuck, isn't this the legendary when the tiger is absent, the monkey becomes the overlord? Xiao Hua smiled again, but before he could smile, the meridians in his body trembled again. Then his whole body shook involuntarily, as if he was having a spasm, and an earthy yellow color flashed across his face again. "Ari, I have to hurry and think of a way." Xiao Hua knew that the accumulated spiritual energy of heaven and earth in his meridians and body was restless again. Fortunately, the spirit-seeking mouse, which hadn't been forced by Little Silver, could still be considered loyal to its duty. It found a cave for Xiao Hua in a secluded place in 10,000 Thunder Valley. Xiao Hua's divine sense swept out. It wasn't close to Helpless, Xiangyang, and Kui Hongshan's cave residences. He unconsciously nodded, carved the location into the spirit-seeking mouse's mouth, and let it go back. After that, Xiao Hua didn't go far. He sat cross-legged in the cave residence and closed his eyes to rest. After a moment, Xiao Hua took out the Executioner Dream. Looking at the flying sword that could do as it pleased and seemed omnipotent, just like him dancing in the air, Xiao Hua thought to himself, the flying sword of a sword cultivator is indeed different from the flying swords of a Dao sect. This Executioner Dream now seems to be able to connect with the gods, and its flying speed is far greater than before. Separate Xiao Hua silently chanted, and 32 swift and fierce sword lights instantly flew out, filling the space around Xiao Hua. The most important thing is that among these 32 flying swords, only one is the main sword. The other 31 are all secondary swords, and the main sword is the eye of the array. It's quite the Tao of dark magic array. It also won't affect the cultivation of sword rendition of the world. Xiao Hua thought with satisfaction, since the sword heart energy seed technique is successful, I should also try to separate my primordial spirit. There are many things that I need to cultivate. A single primordial spirit. I'm afraid that I won't be able to cultivate it to the end of my lifespan. The art of splitting one's primordial spirit could only be completed after opening up the cave and going into seclusion. Xiao Hua then kept Zhu Meng away and took out the jade scroll with the words of the devil world and the refining method of the devil world that he had obtained from Qiao Er. Taking advantage of this free time, he carefully comprehended it. This comprehension lasted for 3 days, and Xiao Hua's face gradually showed a serious expression. The devil world's refining technique was already incomplete, and he couldn't completely understand it. However, from what Xiao Hua could figure out, it made his heart beat wildly. Because what was recorded was a blood refining technique. It was also the most common refining technique in the devil world. Isn't this a refining technique that isn't in the 5 elements? Xiao Hua somewhat understood. It's a pity that the refining technique isn't complete. There's only a small part at the front, the blood refining technique that fuses the devil world's materials. However, when Xiao Hua put the jade slip into the space and closed his eyes to ponder, he somewhat understood. This blood refining technique was suitable for him now. He wanted to refine the Great Wisdom Sword into a 5 elements wishful heaven staff. Didn't he need to fuse these materials together? Blood refining didn't belong to the 5 elements refining technique, and it wouldn't affect his future refining. However, the Devil Hammer, although it isn't controlled by divine sense, but it's still an item from the devil world. I don't know if it belongs to the 5 element. Xiao Hua was a little hesitant, and then he thought of that strange thing that wasn't controlled by divine sense. If that thing is refined together with the Devil Hammer, I wonder what it will be like. -8. Chapter 2189. Little Junior Apprentice Brother. Just as Xiao Hua was deep in thought, Yang Qinglian's voice rang out again. Xiao Hua opened his eyes and saw Zhuo Minghui, Xiangyang, and Yang Qinglian in the distance. Xiao Hua didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly got up and respectfully greeted her. How come Master's wife is also free today? Hihi, even if I'm not free, I still have to come and take a look. Zhuo Minghui smiled and said, You are about to open your mansion. This is a grand occasion for the 2nd-generation disciples of my 10,000 Thunder Valley. Although your master didn't say anything, he was overjoyed in his heart. I don't dare to trouble Master. Xiao Hua hurriedly said. Even if that wasn't the case, I would still be happy with the things you gave me. No matter what, I have to come and see what else you need in your cave abode. Zhuo Minghui pursed her lips and smiled. I didn't expect you to have such a trick up your sleeve. You actually schemed against your master. Seeing Zhuo Minghui's smiling face, Xiao Hua knew that she wasn't blaming him, so he quickly explained, Disciple didn't dare to reveal it. Well, no need to say more. Zhuo Minghui waved her hand. The previous item was already eye-catching, and now this item is even more troublesome. Let's wait until we can't hide it anymore. Yes, I understand. Of course, Xiao Hua knew the importance of this Thunder Beast's inner core to the Imperial Thunder Sect. It was much more important than the Earth Crystal Yarrow Milk. Even with Thunder Meng Daoist status, he might have some thoughts about it. How could he dare to say anything? Why hasn't it started yet? Yang Qinglian looked around and said, This concubine thought it was over. You didn't urge him? Xiong Yang asked with a frown. But Xiao Hua thought otherwise and waved his hand and said, It doesn't matter. Whenever you come will do. If it really doesn't work, I'll do it myself. It's not right for me to do it myself. Zhuo Minghui didn't know about Xiao Hua's background. She smiled and said, Besides, our myriad Thunder Valley doesn't have any puppets. We rely on the methods of the Deafening Thunder Palace. Husband, let's go take a look at the Deafening Thunder Palace. Yang Qinglian said considerately, The opening of the abode is a big matter, and Master is still very concerned about it. Moreover, although Shui is in seclusion, if Zun Shu, Chen Diheng and other junior brothers' good friends come over and see that the abode is not ready, wouldn't they become a joke? Ayo. Speaking up to this point, Xiao Hua came to his senses. He had been busy with his own affairs, plus there was a hidden danger of his strength increasing dramatically, so he had forgotten about this matter. He still hadn't informed these two people. Thus, Xiao Hua smiled and said, There's no need for that. Disciple hasn't notified the two of them yet. Oh. Zhuo Minghui frowned slightly. That's where you're wrong. These two are the direct disciples of Zun Lei Palace and Qian Lei Palace. Especially Qian Diheng, his status is extraordinary. It is not easy for them to be on good terms with you. Although we don't have to shamelessly approach them, the necessary etiquette is still necessary. Yes, disciple understands. Xiao Hua hastily slapped his storage pouch and sent out 2 messaging talismans as he promised Zhuo Minghui. However, he disagreed in his heart. Zun Shu is fine, but that Qian Diheng, damn it, it's impossible for him to not plunder my treasures. Sure enough, in less than half a day, Zun Shu and Qian Diheng arrived one after another. At this time, Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian went to the Thunder Palace to urge him, while Zhuo Minghui returned to her abode, leaving Xiao Hua alone to sit cross-legged. Sensing the two's divine wills, Xiao Hua smiled and greeted them in midair. Ha ha ha! Qian Diheng's laughter was heard. Junior brother Xiao, you've built your foundation as expected. Damn it, I told you. You're definitely fine. Quick. What treasures did you get from your training this time? Quickly take them out and let senior brother see. See if you've been cheated. Sweat. Xiao Hua almost fell from midair. He originally thought that when Qian Diheng said quick, he wanted to know how he built his foundation. Who knew that he actually followed up with that sentence? Isn't this the legendary dog that can't change its habit of eating shit? Xiao Hua secretly criticized. Greetings to junior brother Xiao. Congratulations to junior brother Xiao for building your foundation. Zun Shu had a smile at the corner of his mouth, his face carrying a trace of redness, and his eyes didn't have the slightest bit of astonishment. Obviously, he already knew from Shui that Xiao Hua had built his foundation. Same to you, same to you. Xiao Hua smiled and returned the greeting. Seeing this, Zun Shu's eyes immediately stared at Xiao Hua, not wanting to leave for even half a moment. Seeing that Xiao Hua actually ignored him, Qian Diheng was angry. He jumped up and said, Xiao Hua, I left the old man and hurriedly came to find you. Looking at senior sister Zun's appearance, you've already built your foundation. Why didn't you tell me? Now that I'm here first, you actually talk to senior sister first. This kind of behavior that forgets righteousness in the face of love isn't the Xiao Hua in my eyes. Xiao Hua said disdainfully, what does Xiao Hua look like in your eyes? Qian Diheng's face was profound and full of worship. He slightly narrowed his eyes. In my eyes, Xiao Hua should be generous, doesn't bother about trifles, and regards brotherhood as the number one. Even if he didn't eat it himself, he would still give the spiritual grass to his brothers. That's what you've seen in your dreams. Xiao Hua smiled. He took out a jade box and handed it to Zun Shu. Senior sister Zun, this is a gift from junior brother. Please kindly accept it. It can't be. Junior brother Xiao Hua, you've really disappointed senior brother too much. Chen Diheng had a defeated look, but his eyes were looking at that jade box. Many thanks, junior brother Xiao. Zun Shu took the jade box. She simply didn't look at it, and her face was tight with sweetness. That. Chen Diheng probed. Senior sister Zun, don't you want to see what it is? Why would I want to see it? As long as it's given by junior brother Xiao, it's all good. Zun Shu was about to put the jade box into her storage bag. Hee, senior sister should also take a look. If you can use it earlier, Xiao Hua said with a beaming smile. What is this? Zun Shu said curiously. Right now, I don't have any use for spiritual pills that can increase my power. That's right. Chen Diheng looked at the spiritual grass in the jade box, also puzzled. TSK tilde, you still have the nerve to say that you're from the Heavenly Thunder Palace. Xiao Hua curled his lips and gave Chen Diheng a disdainful look. He raised his palm and stroked his incomparably young face left and right. This. What is the meaning of this? Chen Diheng was even more confused. He really didn't know what the youth-retaining grass was. Zun Shu was puzzled at first, but she didn't know why, but she suddenly understood. It was simply a female cultivator's sixth sense. Hurriedly. It was simply like a sudden clap of thunder, and Zun Shu immediately put the jade box into her storage bag. Ah! Don't! Chen Diheng was anxious. He cupped his hands and said, Senior sister Zun, you can't be like this. What the hell is this thing? Hee. Zun Shu looked at Xiao Hua. Xiao Hua was also beaming. He was still stroking his face shamelessly and said with a smile, what do you think female cultivators like me care about the most? -8. Chapter 2190. What do you mean? How would I know about you female cultivators? Chen Diheng was confused. What do girls care about the most? Zun Shu didn't mind teasing Chen Diheng. Chen Diheng scratched his head. He really didn't understand. In the end, Zun Shu rolled her eyes at him helplessly. If I guessed correctly, junior brother Xiao gave me a youth-retaining grass. What? Youth-retaining grass? Chen Diheng was startled. He directly flew to Xiao Hua's side, grabbed Xiao Hua's shoulder, and said with a grin, Junior brother Xiao, we are good brothers. This is a rare good thing in the world. How can senior brother be left out? TCH tilde Xiao Hua pushed Chen Diheng away. Female cultivators care about appearance. What are you, a big man, thinking about? Don't tell me you want to be a pretty boy for your whole life. What's wrong with being a pretty boy? Pretty boys are the preference of the heavens. Chen Diheng mumbled. The heavens made me so handsome, so I want him to stay this way for a lifetime. Besides, if you're a pretty boy for your whole life, why can't you let others be pretty boys for their whole life? All right. Xiao Hua patted his storage bag and took out a jade box. I originally prepared a rare sea beast's inner core for senior brother Chen. Since you don't want it, then take this. What? Chen Diheng snatched the jade box and threw it into his storage bag. His other hand reached out and smiled. Senior brother Chen wants the youth-retaining grass. Senior brother also wants the inner core. You really have no face. Xiao Hua looked at Chen Diheng's outstretched hand and shook his head helplessly. He took out 2 more jade boxes, one for Zun Shu and Chen Diheng. Zun Shu smiled. You should keep this for yourself. I don't lack pills in Zun Lei Palace. Chen Diheng took the 2 boxes and put one in his storage bag. He threw the other to Zun Shu and smiled. Senior sister, don't worry. According to my understanding of Xiao Hua, this guy definitely has a lot of inner cores. Otherwise, he definitely wouldn't take them out. How could Zun Shu listen to him? He turned to look at Xiao Hua. Hehe, senior sister, take it. Xiao Hua didn't point it out. We haven't seen each other for several years. Consider it a greeting gift. All right. Zun Shu nodded and obediently put it away in his storage pouch. Junior brother Xiao, when did you build your foundation? Only now did Chen Dihang ask. Xiao Hua gave a simple explanation. It was even less than what he had told Wu Hai. But even so, it still took him quite a while to explain. Oh my. Chen Dihang stuck out his tongue. You really went to the Kuhei Sea. By the way, speaking of this, Chen Dihang suddenly remembered something. Junior brother Xiao, isn't it too wasteful to directly take the youthful grass? This stalk of face-retaining grass could be used to refine many face-retaining pills. A face-retaining pill is worth a lot of spirit stones. Nonsense. Xiao Hua sneered. Where did little brother get the pill formula? Hee. Chen Dihang chuckled. Junior brother, it's your fault for not telling senior brother. The Zun Thunder Palace might not have it, but the Heavenly Thunder Palace might not have it. Even if the Heavenly Thunder Palace doesn't have it, this senior brother can still look for it. But, junior brother Xiao, this business. Xiao Hua wasn't very interested in the face-retaining pill. At that time, he was just curious. Hearing Chen Dihang's words, his eyes lit up. He stretched out 2 fingers and shook it twice without saying anything. Junior brother Xiao, you don't have to do this. It's only 20%. Chen Dihang was about to cry. Little brother helped you find the pill formula and find someone to refine it. You only provided the youthful grass, it's just that 80%. No one will do it. TCH, little brother only wants the pill formula. Xiao Hua said disdainfully. Ah! Chen Dihang was stunned. He looked at Zun Shu, who was also surprised. But both of them nodded slightly and didn't ask any more. However, Chen Dihang pestered again, even if it's the pill formula, it's still worth 40%. Junior brother Xiao. Chen Dihang almost pulled Xiao Hua's arm and shook it. He was simply acting spoiled. Fine. Xiao Hua waved his hand helplessly. I'll give you 30%. Little brother doesn't care about anything else. You only care about the pill. Give me the spirit stones. Deal. Chen Dihang immediately raised his hand. Hee. Xiao Hua reached out and clapped hands with him. He also laughed mischievously. Ari, something's not right. Zun Shu knew that at this time. He looked around and asked curiously, Junior brother Xiao, your cave, hasn't it been opened yet? Hehe, no hurry. Xiao Hua didn't care at all, it's only been a few days. Senior brother went to rush me. At this time, Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian flew back with a gloomy face. Zun Shu and Chen Dihang hurried forward to salute. Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian didn't dare to neglect and also hurriedly returned the salute. Xiao Hua saw Xiong Yang's ugly face and smiled. What's wrong? Senior brother, did you suffer in the Thunderclap Palace? Hehe, it's nothing. Xiong Yang shook his head. Now my Thunderclap Palace has a lot of Foundation Establishment disciples. We don't have enough puppets. Junior brother Xiao might have to wait for a while. No matter. Xiao Hua said warmly, it's the same even if I go into seclusion here. Seclusion? Chen Dihang frowned. You just entered Foundation Establishment. What are you going into seclusion for? Zun Shu hurriedly said, Junior brother Xiao, what's wrong? Hehe, nothing. Xiao Hua saw that he had a slip of the tongue and hurriedly said, Junior brother went to Guihe Sea and had some understanding. I understand. Chen Dihang nodded and said, since that's the case, you should have a cave. Then he smiled nastily. Junior brother Xiao, wait a moment. Today I'll bring the Thunderclap Palace's puppets. I'll see which disciple dares to snatch the cave from my brother. Saying that, Chen Dihang activated a spell and rushed into the sky. TCH if I'm not arrogant, I won't know you're a Thunderclap Palace disciple. Xiao Hua curled his lips, very disapproving. Let him go. Yang Qinglian teamed up and said, you don't know how unsightly the Thunderclap Palace's disciples are. My myriad Thunder Valley's confidence is still not enough. Xiao Hua knew that his eldest senior brother and senior sister-in-law were angry, so he didn't say anything more. He had puppets in his space, so he could open a cave at will. If it weren't for the Thunderclap Palace's rules, he would have already done it. Besides, he really didn't believe that spirit-seeking cat could find any spirit vein that was more formidable than his little silver. The Thunderclap Palace's direct disciples were indeed formidable. Zun Shu accompanied Yang Qinglian to talk for a while, and a middle foundation establishment disciple came with a smile on his face, following behind Qian Diheng with more than 10 disciple. Tilda seeing that disciple, Yang Qinglian's face was filled with disdain. Clearly, it was this person who made her and Xiong suffer. Junior brother Qian, where do you want to open the cave? That disciple said with a very flattering smile. How would I know? Qian Diheng said coldly, it's my brother opening the cave, not me. Do I still need you guys when I open the cave? Yes. That disciple took a look and saw that only Xiao Hua was at the initial stage of foundation establishment. He hurried over and smiled apologetically. Where does junior brother want to open the cave? Hey! Didn't this Xiao already give my jade slip to the Thunderclap Palace? Why are you asking this Xiao? Xiao Hua glanced at Xiong, whose face was a little ashen, and sneered. This Tilda that disciple cupped his hands and said, I, Zhen Minghai, congratulate Myriad Thunder Valley's junior brother Xiao for reaching foundation establishment. I'm really sorry. During this time, my Thunderclap Palace has really had too many foundation establishment disciples. Junior brother Xiao just handed me your jade slip, and I haven't had time to look at it yet. Please forgive me. So it's like that. Xiao Hua pondered inwardly, this guy's words aren't without reason. It's just that his attitude is too bad. Thus, he pointed his chin at Xiong and said, this Xiao doesn't care, but I don't know what my eldest senior brother thinks. Seeing that Xiao Hua actually didn't call him junior brother or senior brother, Zhen Minghai frowned slightly. After all, this Myriad Thunder Valley was considered the weakest branch in the Thunderclap Palace. Even if Xiong was already at the middle stage of foundation establishment and had 2 foundation establishment disciples, Xiao Hua and Kui Hongshan, and even Xiong Zhili, the future disciple of Thunder Mesa spiritual master. But after all, this was all in the future. Zhen Minghai, this kind of disciple with authority in his hands, really didn't attach too much importance to this matter. However, what Zhen Minghai was most afraid of was naturally Qian Diheng, this kind of heavenly Thunder Palace disciple who was even more arrogant than him. Now that things had come to this, how could he not know what to do? Zhen Minghai cupped his hands and said, Junior brother Xiong, junior sister Yang, previously this little one was really too busy and neglected you. This little one apologizes here. Seeing Zhen Minghai apologizing, Xiong felt uncomfortable at first, and hurriedly returned the gesture, saying, Hehe, senior brother Zhen is thinking too much. This little brother didn't know that my Thunderclap Palace had many foundation establishment disciples now, and thought that it was intentional neglect. Since you were really busy, how could I blame senior brother? Ari, that's right. Zhen Minghai took the opportunity to say, I don't know what happened, but during this period of time, there were too many foundation establishment disciples from aristocratic families who entered my Thunderclap Palace. This little one is really busy. Seeing that her husband was so easily forgiving, Yang Qinglian snorted and said, since that's the case, then forget it. However, this immortal's cave must be a little bigger. Yen, that's natural. Zhen Minghai said with a smile, junior brother Qian has already come forward. If it's too small, the Heavenly Thunder Palace will lose face. Immediately, Xiao Hua pointed to a location, and Zhen Minghai waved his hand. More than 10 disciples released several puppets and began to work. These puppets of Thunderclap Palace were really crude compared to Xiao Hua's puppets. Not only did they need several disciples to control them together, sometimes they even needed the disciples to use spells. However, these disciples were familiar with the way, and after spending more than half a day's effort, they opened up an immortal's cave that was twice as big as Kui Hongshan. Opening up an immortal's cave must be paid with spirit stones. Seeing that the immortal's cave was opened late, Zhen Minghai cupped his hands and said with a smile, however, since it's junior brother Qian's good friend, this spirit stone is this little one's gift to congratulate junior brother Xiao on his foundation establishment. Don't. Qian Diheng was unhappy. With a wave of his hand, he took out several top-grade spirit stones and threw them at him, saying, This little master can't owe your Thunderclap Palace anything. Otherwise, my great-grandfather will deal with this little master. -8. Chapter 2191. Hehe, alright then. Seeing Qian Dihang mention Gantian, Zhen Minghai didn't dare to say anything. He took the spirit stones and smiled. Thank you, junior brother Qian. Sigh, sometimes it's good to be a little arrogant. Xiao Hua whispered as he watched Zhen Minghai lead the disciples away. That's right. Qian Dihang curled his lips and said, Junior brother Xiao is usually too low-key. That's not what a man should do. Damn it, what does it have to do with you whether I'm a man or not? Xiao Hua glared at him in annoyance. These words sounded familiar to him, as if a female cultivator had said it to him before. Hihi, yes, Fairy Hongxia and Xue no. Qian Dihang revealed a lewd smile. Let's go, we'll go take a look at junior brother Xiao's cave. Yang Qinglian saw Qian Dihang's outrageous words and Zun Shu's blushing face and hurriedly said with a smile. Zun Shu took the lead and quickly walked into the newly opened cave. You still say it's big. Qian Dihang looked and complained again. It's only so, much smaller than mine. What do I need such a big cave for? Xiao Hua glanced at him. Of course. Qian Dihang raised his left hand as if he was going to count. Fine. Xiao Hua knew what he was going to say and hurriedly waved his hand. Don't say any more. You're talking too much. If you don't want to say it, then don't say it. I'm too lazy to say it. Qian Dihang began to look around, but unfortunately, after a moment, he opened his mouth again. He pointed at the cave's surroundings and began to nag about what to put and what to put. He even raised his eyebrows and said, That's right, junior brother Xiao, great-grandfather has a good impression of you. When are you opening the cave? Let him come over and give you some face. I have to tell senior brother and master. Xiao Hua just said this when his body started to tremble again. Although it was very subtle, how could the cultivators not notice it? Xiao Hua, what's wrong with you? Zun Shu was anxious. He walked over in a few steps and even asked with a sobbing tone. Qian Dihang's face also had a serious expression. Nothing, nothing. After Xiao Hua finished trembling, he smiled and said, The meridians in my body is a bit, not appropriate. I need to go into seclusion for a while. Millimeter, I understand. Xiong eyes flashed with understanding. He nodded slightly. I'll go find master now. Don't. Xiao Hua was greatly alarmed. He hurriedly said, I'm afraid, even master can't do it. Why bother him? This. Xiong had only seen Xiao Hua's methods in the Misty Mountain. He knew that early-stage foundation establishment cultivators weren't his match, and he had also seen Xiao Hua's methods after reaching foundation establishment in the Flame Forest Marsh. He knew that Xu Yangyi was extraordinarily powerful, but he didn't believe that a late foundation establishment cultivator like Xu Yangyi was helpless against him. He would rather think that it was Xiao Hua who was helpless and scolded him. Why don't we ask great-grandfather for help? Qian Dihang made a prompt decision. I'll go back now. Stop. Xiao Hua immediately berated. I know what I'm doing. Really? Qian Dihang hesitated. You are my god of wealth. Are you sure? Millimeter, don't worry. Xiao Hua patted his shoulder and said, Go back now and look for that thing. If possible, bring it over before I go into seclusion. Okay. Qian Dihang turned around and was about to leave, but after taking 2 steps, he said, Then your mansion opening. It's all false reputation. What mansion opening? Xiao Hua said carelessly, Life is still more important. Okay. Qian Dihang finished speaking and hurriedly flew away. Senior sister Zun, I've made a fool of myself. Xiao Hua turned around and said, I just reached foundation establishment, and I've already caused so much trouble. It's nothing. As long as you're sure you're fine. Zun Shu was only worried about Xiao Hua, and didn't ask for anything else. It's a pity that I can't let senior sister Zun participate in the mansion opening ceremony. Xiao Hua blinked, looking very disappointed. Zun Shu was full of concern, and said with a forced smile, As long as you're fine. Then she thought for a moment and said, I'm actually going into seclusion in the next few days. Junior sister Shue's cultivation has improved greatly, and it's really a spur for me. Cultivation is like sailing against the current, if you don't advance, you'll fall back. Then senior sister Zun, take care. Xiao Hua cupped his hands and said. Seeing Xiao Hua sending her off, Zun Shu didn't want to leave, but thinking of Xiao Hua's appearance just now, she could only nod, cupped her hands again, and quickly flew away. After the two left, Yang Qinglian said in a low voice, Junior brother, are you sure you don't need to tell master? What can I tell master? Xiao Hua smiled bitterly, looking at the two. Xiong Yang was also sad. He was very clear that Xiao Hua now had an earth attribute constitution, and he really couldn't tell master. Since that was the case, he might as well not say it. You're going into seclusion now? Xiong Yang asked. Xiao Hua said without hesitation, yes, right now. I'll have to trouble senior brother to tell master's wife that I suddenly had an epiphany and must go into seclusion. As for the mansion opening ceremony, let's postpone it. Hehe, I'm afraid master will be hopping mad again, Xiong Yang said with a laugh. It's hard to get a chance to show off. Xiao Hua smiled helplessly and said, if Qiandeheng didn't come, this cave mansion would still need half a year to open, and wouldn't the mansion opening ceremony also have to be postponed? I reckon I'll be able to come out of seclusion in half a year. Master's wife will tell master, there's nothing impossible. All right. Hearing that it was only half a year, Xiong Yang was relieved. He patted his storage pouch, took out a set of simple formation flags and jade slips, and said, this is the formation I received from Thunder Quake Palace. You can set it up yourself according to the jade slip. Okay. Xiao Hua took it. How about we help you set it up? Yang Qinglian said worriedly. Xiao Hua looked at the two senior brothers' concern, and his heart warmed. He knew that if he didn't let them do it, they would definitely be worried, so he nodded and said, then I'll have to trouble senior brother and senior sister. We're brothers, no need to be so polite. Xiong Yang smiled, took the formation flags and talismans, and went to set it up with Yang Qinglian. In the time it took to eat a meal, the cave mansion's formation had already been set up. Yang Qinglian said again that she wanted to move some things from her cave mansion, but Xiao Hua stopped her. He only said that he would talk about it after he came out of seclusion, and asked Xiong Yang and Yang Qinglian to go back. He raised his hand, waved the formation flags, and sealed the entire cave mansion. Ari, junior brother. Yang Qinglian looked at Xiao Hua's hurried appearance, and couldn't help but worry. Junior brother Xiao is such a cautious person. For this kind of situation to occur, I'm afraid there's some problem. Although Xiong Yang was honest and considerate, his thoughts were also meticulous. The more he thought about it, the more worried he became. If he really has a problem, why is he in such a hurry? Even Shue can't wait for him to come out of seclusion. But if Reverend Jing Yu were to use some sort of method. -8. Chapter 2192. Ayo. That's right. Yang Qinglian came to her senses and covered her mouth. I knew it. Reverend Jing Shu's reputation is so bad. How could he let junior martial brother go so easily? He must have a powerful method. But, what can we do? Xiong Yang was even more certain. After all, Xiao Hua had said that there was no way around it. If it wasn't Reverend Jing Shu's method, then what was it? Alas. Yang Qinglian sighed and looked at Xiao Hua's cave again. It was incomparably desolate. Let's go. Xiong Yang waved his hand and said, this matter is the same as before. Don't tell master's wife in detail. Just say that junior martial brother Xiao is going into seclusion. Don't mention anything else. Just in case you make a mistake by saying too much. I know. Let master's wife tell master. Yang Qinglian flew away and answered in a low voice. Xiao Hua sealed the cave entrance and sat down cross-legged. He operated his mental cultivation method and the true essence in his meridians flowed smoothly. However, no matter how he urged his mental cultivation method, the earth attribute spiritual energy of heaven and earth that had accumulated in his meridians couldn't be mobilized, let alone refined. Immediately, Xiao Hua sensed the faint sound of thunder in the cave. However, although the faint sound of thunder could stir up the deposited spiritual energy, it was only enough to stir it up. It wasn't enough to activate the spiritual energy. However, this wasn't outside of Xiao Hua's expectations. He pondered for a moment and thought to himself, my current method should be to refine the accumulated spiritual energy of heaven and earth in my meridians and physical body. However, if I want to advance both at the same time, I need to multitask. Otherwise, I won't be able to cure it completely. Rather than that, I might as well split my primordial spirit. One primordial spirit will cultivate the dragon transformation art, and the other will cultivate the celestial body empowerment technique. In addition, the sword heart energy seed technique has been successful. This means that I can combine the primordial spirit strengthening technique, the primordial spirit splitting technique, and the ghost cultivation technique. Since that's the case, I should take advantage of my secluded cultivation to split these primordial spirits out. Every strand of primordial spirit will be dedicated to a specific task. It's better than me cultivating alone. Immediately after, Xiao Hua thought for a long time. He sat cross-legged, made an extremely strange gesture with both hands, and pointed at his forehead. The spiritual power in his body gradually surged to the gesture in his hands, and his divine sense also contracted. After another incense stick of time, Xiao Hua's face showed a painful expression, and bean-sized sweat droplets appeared on his forehead again. Just like before, an unparalleled pain, a sharp pain that was tearing himself apart, and a feeling that was worse than death came from Xiao Hua's head. Although Xiao Hua was mentally prepared for this pain, when it really came, Xiao Hua was still unable to resist it. A feeling of extreme powerlessness arose in his heart. Rumble. There was a tremor in the air, and Little Silver once again jumped between the spirit plants in alarm. Little Yellow was also startled awake. Xiao Hua didn't have time to talk to it in detail. Quick. Xiao Hua's hands trembled as he made the gesture. As the incantation entered his body, Xiao Hua felt his mind go blank. His head swayed, and it was as if the entire world had become two overlapping worlds. Seeing that a strand of primordial spirit had smoothly flown out, Xiao Hua was secretly delighted. He then used a secret technique to channel that strand of primordial spirit into his meridians. Originally, Xiao Hua had expected some unexpected things to happen during this process, since his meridians weren't like the dream executioner's, and would reject it a little. Who would have thought that when the primordial spirit entered his meridians, there wouldn't be any abnormalities at all? There was an incomparably heavy pressure, as if a huge rock was pressing down on him, and that strand of primordial spirit fell into a deep sleep. Great! If it wasn't for the lingering pain, Xiao Hua would have clapped his hands and laughed heartily. He knew that the strand of primordial spirit had already successfully fused with his meridians. He only needed to use the secret technique to nurture and strengthen that primordial spirit. After it woke up, it would be able to independently and actively use the dragon transformation art, just like how he was using his own cultivation method. Compared to the blood shadow art, it couldn't be mentioned in the same breath. Fusing primordial spirit into the meridians, I'm afraid that in the entire Xiaoyu continent, only this young master can do it, right? Other people wouldn't even think about it. Xiao Hua was secretly pleased. This is also because the blood shadow art is used so smoothly that it can go so smoothly. Mother. At this time, Goldie's dry voice sounded. What is this for? Xiao Hua laughed. This is Mother's ever-changing. Don't be afraid, I reckon there will be more tremors like this in the future. Oh. Seeing that Xiao Hua was fine, Goldie closed its eyes and prepared to sleep again. Don't be anxious. Xiao Hua hurriedly said. Tell Little Silver to help Mother find a place. Xiao Hua hurriedly described a place with abundant spiritual energy. Okay. Goldie chirped a few times at Little Silver. Little Silver nodded and kept somersaulting among the spiritual plants. Then, Goldie fainted. Looking at Little Dusk sleeping, Xiao Hua was extremely envious. Damn it, look at Goldie. He only needs to eat and then sleep to improve. This young master has to put in a lot of effort and still has to endure the pain. This person is really not much different from other people. At this time, Xiao Hua's primordial spirit was in severe pain and he couldn't circulate his energy. Xiao Hua simply lay down on the ground to rest. At this time, the cave's restriction made some noise. It can't be Chen Diheng, right? Xiao Hua thought. This guy is such a miser. Even more so than this young master. Opening the cave's restriction, as expected, Chen Diheng was standing in front of the cave, but his face was full of worry. Seeing Xiao Hua's face as white as paper and even more concerned, he clapped his hands and took out 2 jade slips. He said, "Junior Marshal Brother Xiao, just now I went to see great-grandfather. From what he said, I'm afraid that you've taken too many pills and there's too much medicinal energy in your body. If you don't remove it in time, not only will it affect your realm, it will also destroy your meridians. At this time, you shouldn't cultivate anymore. Instead, you should first expel the medicinal energy. This jade slip contains a secret technique of my thunder-shocking palace, especially for your situation. So it's like this." Xiao Hua was really grateful in his heart. He took the 2 jade slips and scanned them with his divine sense. One of them was naturally the pill formula of the face-retaining pill, and the other was a cultivation method. Xiao Hua roughly looked at it and frowned. He said, "According to this secret technique, won't all these medicinal energy be expelled? It's really a waste." When Chen Diheng heard this, he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He scolded, "Xiao Hua, you don't want to live anymore. What time is it now, and you're still so greedy? Great-grandfather said that because you forcefully wanted to build your foundation, you took too many foundation building pills, which caused the medicinal energy to accumulate. Although you've already built your foundation, your meridians are newly formed and you still don't have the energy to refine these medicinal energy. If you don't expel it, what else can you do? Don't think about it. If the old doesn't go, the new won't come. Don't think about wasting these pills." Then, he said, "As for that face-retaining pill, Junior Marshal Brother doesn't need to be in a hurry to refine it. Right now, you can't easily use magic power. It's better to wait until after you enter seclusion." "Then what did you bring the pill formula for?" Xiao Hua asked curiously. "Damn it, if I don't take advantage of great-grandfather's good mood, when will I get it? If I give it to you, I won't think about it anymore. Besides, with your greedy face, wouldn't it be more comfortable to take the pill formula? So that you won't be willing to part with the medicinal energy in your meridians." Chen Diheng waved his hand and said, "Okay, quickly enter seclusion. By all means, don't be unwilling to use the secret method." After he finished speaking, he turned around and flew away for fear of delaying Xiao Hua's seclusion. "This guy really knows my heart." Xiao Hua rubbed his nose. His heart felt warm as he returned to the Immortal's cave. The pain in his head seemed to have lessened a lot. Only at this time did Xiao Hua have the mind to look at his own Immortal's cave. This Immortal's cave was no different from Xiongyang's Immortal's cave. Except for the place being bigger, the internal structure was exactly the same. As soon as he entered, he saw a hall used to receive guests. Then, there was a small door leading to the back. The back was divided into 2 halves. One half was a nursery with flat ground for planting spiritual plants. The other half was divided into several spaces. Looking at it, it seemed to be a quiet room for refining pills and cultivating. However, at this time, it was empty inside, waiting for Xiao Hua to arrange it at will in the future. Really not creative. I reckon that all the Immortals' caves of Thunderous Palace disciples are like this. Xiao Hua instantly thought of Xiongyang's Immortals' cave and sighed. There was a trace of helplessness on his face as he clearly thought of Haoming City's Immortals' cave. Forget it, how can this young master fix this now? When I have time in the future. Thinking this, Xiao Hua suddenly laughed. Damn it, if this young master's entire Immortals' cave comes out again, wouldn't it be the legendary "A crafty rabbit has 3 burrows"? Then, Xiao Hua's mouth trembled rapidly a few times. It was actually very similar to a rabbit's 3-petaled mouth. "Come out little silver Xiao Hua waved his hand, and little silver appeared in midair again. But at this time, little silver was clearly no longer astonished. His 2 bright mouse eyes turned, and without waiting for Xiao Hua's instructions, he rushed out in a flash. There was no need for Xiao Hua to tell him anything at all. "Ayo, don't be in such a hurry." Xiao Hua hurriedly raised his hand to stop him, but seeing that Little Silver had already scurried out of the cave that hadn't been sealed yet, he could only sigh. "Ari, you still listen to your mother. Last time, you didn't move no matter how I told you to search for the spirit vein. Forget it. I can't cultivate for the time being, so I'll go take a look." Xiao Hua then flew out of the Immortal's cave and opened the array. After Little Silver left the Immortal's cave, he sniffed the air with his little nose, which had faint golden threads, and then flew into the depths of 10,000 Thunder Valley. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's eyes turned. He had been a disciple of 10,000 Thunder Valley for a long time, but he had never been on duty there, so he didn't know how his Shifu was on duty. If he entered 10,000 Thunder Valley now, he might run into something helpless. But given Xiao Hua's current cultivation, how could a late Foundation establishment cultivator discover him? Thus, Xiao Hua only hesitated for a moment before his figure flashed and he gave chase. That's not right. Xiao Hua followed Little Silver into the depths of 10,000 Thunder Valley, and the faint sound of thunder gradually grew louder. Both silent and loud thunder attacked Xiao Hua, and even his state of mind was a little disturbed. Xiao Hua sensed that something wasn't right. Is Little Silver mistaken? How can there be a spirit vein here? Even if there is a spirit vein, it's impossible for me to open an immortal residence here, right? -8. Chapter 2193. However, when Xiao Hua released his Buddhist consciousness, he saw Little Silver's two bean-sized rat eyes glow, as if he had seen a spirit stone. Could it be that Little Silver has discovered some treasure? That was right. Wasn't a spirit-seeking mouse a rat that searched for spirit objects? It was only natural that Little Silver would be able to discover any treasure. It was just that the spirit-seeking mouse's greedy appearance was really too similar to Xiao Hua's. After flying for half a day, Xiao Hua's ears were already filled with the sound of thunder, but Little Silver didn't stop, and instead became even more excited. That's even more wrong. Realization dawned on Xiao Hua at that moment. This guy couldn't have discovered the treasure in Myriad Thunder Valley, right? Ayo, not good, it's Shifu. Xiao Hua's Buddhist consciousness suddenly saw a jade-green stone wall overflowing with magic power, and a helpless figure abruptly appeared, his face full of exhaustion. He had taken out a jade token in his hand, and seemed to be sealing the restriction. When he looked at Little Silver again, it was clear that he also felt helpless, and his small figure abruptly darted downwards like a thin white light, instantly falling into the ground. Little Silver can also escape through the earth. Seeing this, Xiao Hua's mouth gaped slightly. He really hadn't expected this. But Xiao Hua smiled bitterly in an instant. Do rats naturally know how to dig holes? So what if they can escape through the earth? Doesn't that whatever nether bat also know how to escape through the earth? Seeing that Little Silver had no choice but to seal the restriction, Little Silver's figure flashed in his direction. Xiao Hua didn't dare be careless, and his figure flew swiftly as he also rushed underground. Unfortunately, he didn't notice anything unusual at all, and flew away from where Xiao Hua had stopped earlier, about 10 jong away. Little Silver flew underground and didn't stop at all, continuing to flee forward until he was finally blocked by a restriction. Without the slightest hesitation, Little Silver opened his mouth and bit at the restriction. Good boy, Little Silver. Xiao Hua hurriedly called out to Little Silver, but Little Silver ignored him and continued to swallow the spirit chi on the restriction mouthful by mouthful. Oh! Xiao Hua instantly remembered how Little Silver had bitten the imprisonment spell to save him when he had just entered the Imperial Thunder Sec. He knew that Little Silver had the ability to swallow spirit chi. After that, Xiao Hua released his Buddhist perception and opened his Dharma eyes. When he looked at the restriction before him, he couldn't help but frown. This was an extremely powerful array. There were many restrictions within the array, layer upon layer, and all kinds of restrictions were linked together. It was very difficult to break through. Even if Xiao Hua's cultivation in array formations had improved greatly, it would still not be easy to break through. Forget it, let little Silver try. Xiao Hua nodded slightly, and his Buddhist awareness swept over. He saw that this was a huge magic array that stretched for dozens of miles, and it enveloped all the valleys in front of it. Lightning flashed within the array, and all kinds of thunder were transmitted through the restriction. My goodness, if the outside of the formation is already so powerful, what about inside the formation? This should be the core of the 10,000 Thunder Valley. Xiao Hua understood in his heart, and his heart was filled with joy. Only a place where thousands of lightning bolts gathered would be able to stimulate the accumulated spiritual energy in his body. Admittedly, the array was powerful, but spirit mice were born to swallow spirit chi. It took little Silver half a day before he finally bit off a strand of spirit chi in the array. With a crack, a bolt of lightning passed through the array and struck little Silver. Xiao Hua was already prepared. He stretched out his hand to block in front of little Silver. A wave of numbness spread up his arm, and a few strands of spirit chi were actually drawn out of his body by the lightning. At the same time, Xiao Hua swung his right hand again, and several rabbit spirit talismans hit the floor that little Silver had bitten out, blocking the area that was already starting to close up. Little Silver's body was like lightning, and before the lightning could leak out, his small figure scuttled into the array. Slow down a little. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. He cast several more spirit talismans to widen the floor, and then he also flew into the array. Xiao Hua had already imagined the core of the 10,000 Thunder Valley countless times before, but when he saw it with his own eyes, he couldn't help sucking in a cold breath. It was a deep valley surrounded by lightning, and the bottom couldn't be seen, but in the middle of the valley, which was several li away, there was a huge cone-shaped mountain peak that seemed to stand out of thin air. Countless bolts of lightning struck the mountain peak from top to bottom, and there wasn't the slightest gap at all. This is the 10,000 Thunder Valley. It's not just 10,000 bolts of lightning. Xiao Hua didn't dare release his Buddhist awareness or divine will. He only looked at the mountain peak in the distance, which stood tall amidst the millions of bolts of lightning, and sighed with emotion in his heart. Furthermore, the millions of bolts of lightning didn't fall from the sky, but from the void as they struck the mountain peak. Lightning flowed over the mountain peak and fell straight down into the deep black abyss below. Little Silver! Xiao Hua cried out in surprise. Little Silver's small body shuttled through the lightning with great familiarity. He had already flown more than 1,000 zhong, and his target was the mountain peak in the center of the 10,000 Thunder Valley. At this point, how could Xiao Hua not know what Little Silver was thinking? Little Silver probably really regarded the core of the 10,000 Thunder Valley as a treasure. Or perhaps, Little Silver wanted Xiao Hua to open up his cave residence here. Fuck, if that was the case, it would be the biggest joke in the world. Wouldn't Thunder Palace immediately pull out Xiao Hua's tendons and skin him alive? Squeak squeak. Little Silver flew another li, unease on his face. He didn't dare move forward anymore and just stood in midair, his two front paws clasped together as if he was bowing, his eyes flashing. Millimeter, I understand. Xiao Hua nodded. With a flick of his sleeve, he put Little Silver into his space. Then he activated the Bright Thunder Escape and flew toward the mountain peak. The Bright Thunder Escape was swift to begin with, and in this space filled with lightning, he was even more like a fish in water. An unprecedented feeling of comfort actually emerged when he used the lightning escape technique. Xiao Hua's heart suddenly stirred as he thought to himself, the lightning escape technique should be used to escape amidst lightning. The Imperial Thunder Sect had this 10,000 Thunder Valley. Was it where they cultivated the lightning escape in the beginning? It's just that the secret technique to avoid lightning was lost, and many cultivators didn't dare train here, so this place was abandoned. Don't you remember what Shifu said? Guarding the 10,000 Thunder Valley is a very difficult task. At first, it was highly valued, but later on, it wasn't so well received anymore. Just as he was thinking this, a huge bolt of lightning suddenly appeared in the air. Xiao Hua didn't have time to dodge at all before it struck him. A wave of numbness and soreness came from his body, and he fell from midair. Xiao Hua didn't dare be careless. His Phoenix Dharma body flew out of his body and flapped its wings to stabilize his body. Crack crack. Before Xiao Hua could react at all, several bolts of lightning appeared and struck his Phoenix Dharma body repeatedly. Sizzle. Electric light flowed into Xiao Hua's body. 8. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.